Hey guys and girls. Um, I asked if I made an all-inclusive video, if you would send it out to certain people, and you guys have overwhelmingly said yes. So I'm gonna make this. Now this is gonna be rather long, so I'm gonna give you pause breaks. Okay, I'm gonna give you a couple pause breaks. So I'll let you know when it's time to take a break. So let's just jump right into it. This is the all-inclusive work, the case against religion. Okay. Now, this is gratitude. This is dedicated to two people who saved my life and I've learned from exclusively. Jordan Maxwell, rest in peace, who was a friend, and Santos Bonacci, who I teach for now. A small piece of their work has made its way into this presentation. Please, after watching this, get into these two. I owe them everything. So employ your time in improving yourself by other men's writings, so that you shall come easily by what others have labored hard for. That's Socrates. And that's basically what this is. I've been studying astrotheology for 11 years, and I've been teaching it for about two and a half. I've studied the Bible for 30 years, and I've studied esotericism and occult for about 20. Okay, so let's just jump right into this. This is the zodiac with Cancer at the top and Capricorn at the bottom. This is how the wheel should look. Okay, astrotheology is the mythology of the zodiac as it applies to the holy texts. Okay, we're going to make a case for that today. So, our knowledge of astrology, okay, as far back as I could find it, goes back to the Lascaux caves. Okay, that's 17,000 to 40,000 years. Okay, now here we see an article that says the Lascaux cave paintings are 17,000 years old, and the world's oldest cave paintings show humans understood complex astronomy 40,000 years ago. Okay? So, what are the Lascaux caves? Well, they're caves in Lascaux, France. That's why they're called the Lascaux caves. And what happened is there were some teenagers that went into the back of them a while back. When they went into the back of them, they saw things like this. Okay? And you see the bull at the top, the many faces of the lion on the right, and you see the horse at the bottom. Now they quickly realized that the bull was Taurus, that the lion was Leo, and the horse was Sagittarius. It's just missing the guy with the bow and the arrow. So what did they do? They called people for starters, and the scientists carbon dated the wall, and it came out to about 17,000 years. Okay, when you carbon date something, a lot of Christians will tell you that it's inaccurate, and they're half right. Okay, carbon 14 dating is inaccurate. However, up to 50,000 years, it actually proves to be quite accurate. Okay, it's just when you get beyond that that it's a little different. Okay, that's when you have to use some uranium dating, other types of carbon dating. Okay, so what they did was they called in an astrologer and an astronomer, and they brought in a computer because we have the technology to do this. And what they did was they rewound the sky back 17,000 years, and they printed out what they saw on the computer, and they superimposed it onto the wall, and all the constellations lined up. Not only that, but on June 21st, the summer solstice, okay, the sun would actually come into the cave and bounce off the back of the wall. Okay, it only did this on this one day. So the cave was man-made, okay, with understandings of astrology, and there was astrology on the wall. Okay, now there's questions you can ask about the Bible: how Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water, how he turned water into wine, why he had 12 disciples, why he was betrayed with a kiss from Judas, why he was dead for 3 days, why is his birthday on December 25th. Now, all this could be answered with astrology, and we're going to get into that. Okay, Genesis 1:14 says, "Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years." And that's basically what this is. Okay, now, each zodiac sign is called a house, or an era, or an eon, or a sign. There are many words for it. Okay, but they're basically called houses. Okay, this is going to come into play soon. So let's go over the 12 signs. Okay, so you understand what I'm talking about. Now, there's going to be key words in each sign that describe the sign. And we're going to use those key words to decode. Okay, so now the first sign I talk about is Aquarius, which is represented by the man with the water pitcher. Now, technically, Aries begins the year, the agricultural year, but I start in Aquarius because that's kind of the beginning of our year. Okay? Goes back to the story of Zeus and the young boy. So, Zeus, which is a Greek story. So, Zeus saw a 14-year-old boy on Earth, and he wanted him in heaven. He thought it was beautiful. Okay? So, the boy didn't want to come, and the boy's father didn't want to let him go. So, Zeus ends up bargaining with the father. He gives him a whole bunch of stuff, money, land, and animals and stuff like that. Takes the boy up to heaven. While the boy is in heaven, he's feeding the gods out of this water pitcher that you see here, something called ambrosia, which was the nectar of the gods. Okay, it's what the gods drank. Nowadays, it's just a whipped cream tangerine salad. Okay, but ambrosia actually used to be represented as sort of an ethereal drink that these gods used to drink. One day, he gets fed up with feeding the gods this because that's all he ever does. He goes to the side of heaven with the water pitcher and pours it out, just like in this picture. Okay, all the ambrosia pours out, and it causes a great flood on Earth. That's where the Greeks get their flood story. Zeus, in a moment of self-reflection, is going to punish him. But he realized that he brought him up to heaven, and in a rare moment for Zeus, he kind of feels bad for the boy. Okay, because Zeus is known to be very erratic. Okay, so what does he do? Well, instead of punishing him, he immortalizes him as the constellation Aquarius, as the man, as a boy, who's pouring the water out of the water pitcher. So there's words you can use. Whenever you hear the word son of man, man, because this is a sign of the man. Baptism, because this is how you baptize someone. Water pitcher, because this is a water pitcher. Fountain, many fountains are built like this. Stream, river, pond, lake, ocean, sea, water bodies. You're talking about Aquarius. Now, astrologers will tell you that Aquarius is actually an air sign, and it's not a water sign, and that's correct. However, when you're decoding in the Bible, okay, because in Aquarius there's water, okay, in the picture, in the sign, part of the story, you can use it to represent water. Now, it also represents Pisces, which is the sign of the two fish in the water, which is Pisces is an immutable water sign. So all the water examples still exist. Now, how do you tell the two difference from Aquarius and Pisces? The first two being the water signs, and I use the water signs kind of haphazardly because Aquarius isn't a water sign. Well, there's ways to figure it out. We get into cross signs and neighboring signs. There's pattern recognition. That's how you figure out which one they're talking about. Now, Aries is the ram, and in Aries you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night. It's also the Passover, or the passing over of the sun over the equator and back on its way to its height in the summer solstice. In Christianity, the passing over is changed and becomes the resurrection of God's son. Okay, the idea is Jesus is a solar deity. He's the sun. Okay, and the Jewish Passover is when the angel of death passes over every house in Egypt. Anyone that doesn't have the lamb or the ram, Aries, the ram, that doesn't have the lamb's blood smeared on their doorposts, their firstborn sons get killed. So it's three separate meanings, but it all means the same thing. It's the Passover. Okay, so whenever you hear ram, lamb, shepherd, or ram's horn, you're talking about Aries. Then Taurus is the bull. And when you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow in the bull so that you can plant the seeds so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. It's as above, so below. So whenever you hear bull, ox, calf, cow being the female bull, you're talking about Taurus. Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. So whenever you hear twins or brothers, they're talking about Gemini. Cancer is the crab, and it's a sideways moving creature. So what the sun does is starting on December 25th, it'll rise a degree on its axis. The 26th of December, it rises an additional degree. The 27th, an additional degree. It rises a degree every single day higher, all the way until it hits June 21st. That's the summer solstice. That's the height. That's the longest day of the year, the shortest night of the year. Then what it does is instead of rising an additional degree on June 22nd, or lowering a degree, it stays at that height. It stays at that height for 3 days. Hence, walking sideways. The sun walks sideways, like the crab. Okay? Then on June 25th, it lowers a degree. And then the next day, it lowers an additional degree. It continues to do that until it hits December 21st, which is the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year, where December 21st, where it then walks sideways for 3 days. And then it comes back to life on January and December 25th. Okay. And it follows this pattern year in and year out. So whenever you hear crab or beetle, which doesn't happen often, but whenever you hear that, you're talking about Cancer. Leo is the king. The lion, he's the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you hear lion, lioness, or cub, you're talking about Leo. Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. Remember before when you heard that I said that you plant in Taurus? Well, the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, wheat, grain, seed, barley, corn, grainy things that you harvest, that was always done in Virgo. Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. Okay? The Jews always celebrate the new year around the fall equinox. And then 8 days after Rosh Hashanah, they have a day called the Day of Judgment. Well, of course, the Day of Judgment, Yom Kippur, takes place in Libra. It's the day of judging. Libra is also wine season, which when you plant for the grapes in Taurus, you can press the wine here. Okay. Libra is also olive oil season. That's when you press the olives. Okay. So whenever you hear law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, lawyer, law, that's Libra. Wine, vineyard, wine press, grapes, that's Libra. Olive oil or olive oil is also Libra. Incidentally, frankincense and myrrh are both olive plants as well too. So when you get to the point where they're talking about the three kings bringing all the presents for baby Jesus, frankincense and myrrh are olive plants. That gets into the metaphorical story of Libra. Scorpio is the scorpion. He is the betrayer. When a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. It's why the mafia has the kiss of death, and it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with the kiss. So the sun is judged in Libra, and it's betrayed in Scorpio. Finally, in Sagittarius, this is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun and inflict further punishment on the sun. Why? This is where the sun dies. Why? Because on December 21st, the sun is at its lowest point. It cannot rise any lower. It's dead. Okay, and then remember, it walks sideways for 3 days. It doesn't move. The ancients would look at the sun, and it wouldn't even crack the horizon on these days, on this day. So they would say God's sun was dead. And then it walks sideways for 3 days like it did in June too. So suddenly God's sun was dead for 3 days. Then when on December 25th, or the birth of God's son and every other deity, it rises another degree and starts to make its way back up to the top. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, spear, or horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. Finally, if Capricorn is the goat because he likes to climb the mountain. So if you look at the zodiac wheel on the right, Capricorn's at the bottom. Okay. So you're starting on June 25th in Capricorn, it rises a degree. Okay. Rise a degree every single day, going to the left of the wheel on its way on the way to the top in Cancer. Okay. It starts to climb in Capricorn, which is the mountain. It's the wheel is the mountain. It's a metaphor. Okay. So those are the 12 signs. So let's start to get into some stuff. Okay. Now there's names for Jesus that he's given in church that are just purely astrological, that no priest or pastor or anybody would tell you is the case. But I will. Okay. Remember, Jesus is the sun. Okay. When the sun is in Capricorn, the goat, he's called the scapegoat of Israel. When the sun is in the man sign of Aquarius, he's called the son of man. When the sun is in Pisces, the two fish, he's the fisherman of men. It's also why he feeds the masses with 2 fish. When the sun is in Aries, the ram, he's called the Lamb of God or the Good Shepherd. Cancer, the scarab. Remember the scarab beetle? Because in the ancient Egyptian times, the crab used to be called the scarab. Okay. St. Augustine calls Jesus the good beetle. He's the Lion of Judah, also known as Leo. The lady holding the stalk of wheat, Virgo, he's born of a virgin, and he's called the bread of life. Libra's the scale of justice, he's known as the just one. But he's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius on December 21st. It's also why he's worshipped on the Sunday. Now I'm going to draw your attention to a couple things on the stereotypical picture of Jesus that I pulled from the internet, which you can find as well. There's the sun behind his head, the two fingers up like that, okay? The heart and the crown of thorns outside the body, okay? That white face that he has, that stereotypical face that he has with the beard, and the white and the red robe, okay? The Bible is also alchemical, okay? There's also alchemy in the Bible. The white and the red robe, why he always wears that is because it's the marriage and alchemy of what's known as the Red King and the White Queen, okay? It's a mixture of mercury and sulfur. When you mix them together, it's called the alchemical marriage, okay? That's why he wears the red and the white, okay? Now, the sun is always behind Jesus because he represents the sun. The two fingers up like that are an ancient Kemetic peace sign. When I say Kemetic, I mean ancient Egyptian. The separate sign is the war sign, okay? The John Lennon peace sign, that's a Winston Churchill British V for Victory war sign, okay? It's actually not a peace sign. The peace sign is this. So whenever you see Jesus doing this, or you see Baphomet, or you see Buddha, or you see anyone doing this two fingers up pose, that's what it is. It's a peace sign. They're telling you they're coming peacefully. Now, the white Jesus picture is actually a guy named Caesar Borgia, who was the bastard son of Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia. See, what happened is Rodrigo Borgia brought his way to the papacy in the 1500s, okay? And there was no official picture of Jesus at the time, but what had happened while Rodrigo Borgia got there is that the printing press had come out about 80 years prior. So they were able to mass produce his son's face as Jesus. And yes, popes used to have kids. They never got married, so they were all bastards, okay, all the kids, because popes didn't get married, but they did have kids, okay? So that's the story. And Caesar Borgia was a bastard too, in real life he was. He killed his brother, he slept with his sister, just to mention a couple of things, okay? So the crown of thorns, wrapped around the heart on the outside, and the heart is always on the outside, represents the rays of the sun. The heart outside the body represents the toroidal field, or the human torus field. Now, in case you're wondering, which is just one stereotypical picture of Jesus, here's a few others. Okay, you see the same face, you see the sun behind, it's always the sun behind. Okay, the heart outside the body, the two fingers. Okay, and the second picture sometimes is a Knights Templar cross in the sun, but nonetheless, it's there. Baby Jesus. Look, the sun is behind the baby's head. He represents the sun. You'll always see Polaris, the North Star, being shown. Okay, you show the animals, which we'll get into later, and you'll see the alchemical clothing. Okay, now the human toroidal field looks like this. It's an electromagnetic field of the heart. Okay, it radiates outside of you, circumventing you 6 feet. Okay, that's why the elites tried to keep you 6 feet apart during the pandemic. Okay, it was such an arbitrary number, no one knew where it came from, but it was meant so that you can't interact with anyone electromagnetically. When someone comes up behind you and you know that they're there, or if they're a few feet behind you and you know they're there, they broke your toroidal field. You're not a psychic. Okay? Now, when two toroidal fields interact, it looks like this. Some people call it an aura. There's words for it, but they're measurable. Okay, here you see it forms the Vesica Pisces around the two. Okay? Now, here's Caesar Borgia on the left. And this is the stereotypical picture of Jesus on the right. You can see the striking similarities. Okay? I just want to leave this up for a sec, just to show you that. Before the Shroud of Turin was discovered in 1525 AD, almost all paintings and drawings of Jesus were shown a young, beardless man. Right? So now what are we going to do? Now that we got that stuff under the belt, let's go into some decodings. Now, if I were to say the phrase pride comes before the fall, a lot of you people would say it means don't get too boastful, otherwise you will fall. Okay? Don't let your pride get in the way of what you do. Try and stay humble, because when you get too pride, you're setting yourself up for the fall. And that's a good way to interpret it. However, astrotheologically, a group of lions is called the pride. Lion is Leo. Leo is in July and August. That comes before the season of the fall. Okay, so that's how you would interpret that astrotheologically. Now the next one, Micah 5:2, which is my namesake. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come from me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from ancient times. However, Bethlehem is two words in Hebrew. It's a combination. Bet means house, and lechem means bread. So the house of bread. Well, I just told you the house of bread was Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. So that's where the Savior is going to come from. The Savior is going to come from a virgin. That's how it's astrotheologically here. Okay? Bethlehem Ephrathah. From Bethlehem, the house of bread, the Savior will come. Okay? So it's predicted in the Old Testament. Okay? Now, the next one, Deuteronomy 32, there's 10 signs. Let's go into that. Deuteronomy 32. He gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky grounds. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. So let's start over. He gave them honey. Well, what about honey? Well, in the sign Cancer, okay, there's a group of stars called the Beehive Cluster. Okay, that's where the honey comes from the beehive. Okay, and olive oil from the rocky ground. Well, we know olive oil is Libra. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. Well, the milk will come from the Milky Way galaxy. Okay, who centers in Sagittarius. So your land from the Beehive Cluster in Cancer, the Milky Way galaxy in Sagittarius, is your land of milk and honey. It's in the heavens. It's not a place on earth. Okay? And he gave them lambs, which is Aries, and goats, which is Capricorn the goat. They're the best rams, that's Aries, from Bashan, and the finest wheat. Well, that's Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. He gave them the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. That's Libra. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. Well, the bull is Taurus. So those are your 10 signs right there. So now that you see how this is going to start to work, I'm going to show you with the wheel how we're going to use it. Okay? The Mount of Olives. Jesus led his disciples to the Mount of Olives after his last Passover so he could teach them a few more things. Pray, then wait for Judas to betray him. While walking to the Mount of Olives, he gave the parable of the true vine. Okay? Now, Passover takes place in Aries. Okay? So find Aries on the wheel. It's all the way on the left. Okay? Well, right after that, he walks to the Mount of Olives. Well, I told you olives happen in Libra. So how do you get from Aries to Libra? You go across the zodiac. They're known as cross signs. Signs, three most important signs are its cross sign, its opposing sign, and its neighboring signs. So for Aries, the neighboring signs are Pisces and Taurus, and their cross sign is Libra. Okay? The Bible, when you decode it with astrotheology, will always produce cross signs or neighboring signs. That's how you know it was done on purpose. If it was just, let's say, Gemini, if there was just a story about the twins and the fish and the scorpion, those don't really follow patterns in the zodiac. However, they do when you do this. So Passover takes place in Aries. Right after that, he walks to the Mount of Olives. So he goes across the wheel from Aries to Libra. While they're in Libra, they're waiting for Judas to betray him. Okay? Now, the betrayer is Scorpio. I told you that. So look, you go from Aries to Libra, that's a cross, and then you're waiting for the next sign, Scorpio. So while you're in Libra, and you're waiting in Libra, he gives the parable of the true vine, which goes to grapes, which goes to wine, okay, which is Libra. So Aries to Libra, you're waiting for the Scorpio, and then you're still in Libra, okay? That's the pattern this makes. And God made the firmament, Genesis 1:7, and divided the waters which are under the firmament from the waters which are above the firmament, and it was so. The firmament are the dividing lines between zodiac signs. See, the firmaments don't actually exist. Okay, the firmament is not a flat dome. I mean, a flat earth with a dome over it. That's not what the firmament is. The firmament are the dividing lines between signs. Okay, now they don't really exist, but what do they symbolize? Well, it's a 3-day on each side handover period. Okay, where one side hands over to the next. Okay, that's what it means. Okay, some people call them cusps. There's different words for it. Okay. So now the two waters are Aquarius and Pisces. So when God made the firmament and divided the water which is under the firmament, so the water that was under is Pisces, and the water which was above is Aquarius. Okay, that's what he did. That's what this passage is saying. He's saying he's dividing the two waters. Revelation 4:7. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. Let's break this down because there's people who think that this is literally going to happen in the sky. The first living creature was like a lion, that's Leo. The second was like an ox, that's Taurus. The third had a face like a man, that's Aquarius. The fourth was like a flying eagle. Now, in astrology, the Scorpio scorpion is the belly crawling creature. It's the lowest form of life on earth. Okay? It's a punishment. The first thing God does when the serpent deceives Adam and Eve is take away its legs. It has to slither on its belly. Okay? Now, that's the lowest form of life on earth. However, its evolved form, also called the ascendant, okay, is the eagle. So the eagle becomes Scorpio, and the eagle is the highest flying form of life on earth. Okay? So Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio are the four fixed signs of the zodiac. But what are the fixed signs? The four fixed signs. They're fixed because they're fixed in their season. Okay? There's 4 sets of 3 in the zodiac wheel that represent each season. Okay? The first sign that brings you into the season is the cardinal sign. Okay? The second sign is the fixed sign because it's dead in the season. And then the third that takes it out is the mutable. Okay? So these are the 4 fixed signs because they're fixed in the season. The line is in the middle of summer, Taurus, spring, Aquarius, winter, and the flying eagle, or Scorpio's fall. Let's read this one more time. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. When you point this on a zodiac wheel, it makes a pattern like this. Now, the lion Leo and the man Aquarius are opposing signs. The ox Taurus and the eagle Scorpio, right, are opposing signs. This is the pattern it makes in the sky. So it's either happenstance to be talking about the 4 zodiac signs that are fixed in the season, okay? And we'll get into Ezekiel's wheel because there's a mention of that too. Okay, it's encoded, it's hidden. I'll show you. This is the pattern that it makes. Okay, so it either does this or it's a literal thing. Which one do you think it would be? Ezekiel 10:14. Each of the cherubim had 4 faces. One face was that of a cherub. The second was the face of a human being. The third, the face of a lion. The fourth, the face of an eagle. See, it's the same thing. They keep retelling it. Revelation 12. A great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. There's people who think this happened astrologically. There's people who think that this happens literally. Okay, I'm going to demystify this. A woman clothed with the sun is a sun clothed in Virgo. It's literally just a metaphor. Okay, you're going to have to get used to all these kind of celestial metaphors. Okay, which I'll point out. Now, if the sun is in Virgo, the moon will be at her feet. So the zodiac is 12 signs. There's a 24-hour-a-day clock. So just do the math. The sun spends 2 hours a day in each sign. Now, when the sun is in Virgo, okay, if you follow the wheel, that's between 4 and 6 p.m. Well, at 4 and 6 p.m., the sun is still out. So if the sun is out, the moon is metaphorically at her feet, at the feet. Okay, whereas if the moon is out, then the sun is at the feet. It's just a metaphor. Now, another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. The constellation Draco is the dragon on the left. Its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 4/12 of the sign, or 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. Okay, now notice this is that I'm only using the zodiac and the constellations they knew about at the time to break down the Bible. I'm not using apologetics. I'm not making up stories. I am not deep diving into it. Okay, Revelation 7:4. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from the tribes of Israel. Okay, now people think that the 144,000, especially the Jehovah's Witnesses, They think that this is a fixed number of people that get to go to heaven. That's what they do. They think that. They think it's predetermined that 144,000 people out of the billions and billions of people that have ever existed, that's what it is. But I'm going to break that down for you. There are 7 chakras. The root has 4 petals. The sacral has 6. The solar plexus has 10. The heart is 12. The throat is 16, which equals 48. The third eye chakra is represented by 96 and only has 2 petals because it's 2 times as powerful as the lower chakras. So 48 times 2 is 96. The crown chakra is 1,000 times more powerful than the lower 6 chakras. When you add the lower 6, you get 96 plus 48 equals 144. You times that by the crown chakra 1,000 times, and you get your 144,000. What this ancient passage is trying to tell you is when you've activated all your chakras, that's when you go to heaven. That's when you get to see God. It is not an arbitrary number that has to be filled, like heaven has a capacity or something. That's not how this works. Okay? Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. A very famous passage, made even more famous by the movie The Devil's Advocate. Well, the sheep is Aries, and the wolf is the constellation Lupus, who borders the Libra line. Those are opposing signs. Look at the pattern it makes. Okay, remember, it's always opposing signs and neighboring signs. Okay? So I'm giving examples of astrotheology in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. I've been accused of cherry-picking verses from the Bible to prove a point. So let's take a much longer passage and see if we can decode it as well. So this brings us to the book of Job. Okay? This brings us to the book of Job. Well, who is Job? Well, Job was a righteous man. Okay? He had everything that you could think of. He had land, he had money, he had land, he had money, he had family, he had animals, he had everything. He was God's righteous servant. Satan comes up to God one time and says, listen, the only reason he's righteous is because he has everything in the world. You take that away from him, he will curse you. So God says, I'll take that bet. I don't believe he will. But I give you permission to do whatever you want to him. You just cannot take his life. So little by little, Satan starts taking things away from him, his family, his animals, his wealth, everything. He gets boils all over him. And then at one point, he's screaming up to heaven. And he's begging God to answer him. Okay? Now, he never curses him. And in the end, God ends up giving him everything back. However, he ends up not cursing him, and he gets everything back. However, I'm going to break down for you what God replies, because God does respond to Job, and I'm going to break that down. It's also interesting, too, that God took this bet with Satan. If you believe that God knows what everybody does, and God knows what everybody will do, in the past and the future, then why would he not know this? But we're going to get into God much later, okay? So we have Job 38:32. God first says, can you lead forth the Mazzaroth? So right away, the Mazzaroth is the zodiac. That's what it means. Right away, he asks, do you know your zodiac? Mazzaroth over time becomes Mazalot, which survives in Judaism today, is Mazel Tov, and you know how old that word is. Well, Mazel Tov means good fortune from the stars. So what is the Lord's challenge to Job? He says, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? See, these are the celestial metaphors I was talking about. And he says, can you bring forth the constellation in their seasons or lead out the bear with its cubs? The constellations are the zodiac above, and the bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper, who can tip over the water jars of heavens. That's literally Aquarius, tipping over the water jar of heaven. Who can hunt for the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions? That's Leo. Who provides food for the raven? That's the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears are fawn? That's Mariga, meaning deer, and is located in Orion. Who let the wild donkey go free? That's Acellus Borealis, meaning donkey, and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? That's Taurus. The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully. That's Lambda Achille or Al Thaliman, which means 2 ostriches in Arabic. Do you give the horse its strength? Okay, so it's the horse, so we know it's Sagittarius, but let's find out more. It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing, does not shy away from the sword. The quiver, there it is, right there, the quiver. That's what holds the arrows on the side of the horse. Rattles against its side along with the flashing spear and lance. That's Sagittarius with the bow and the arrow. Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? That's Aquila, which is the Latin name for eagle, and is a constellation a few degrees above the celestial equator. You might be saying, Micah, the eagle is Scorpio. It's the ascendant. That's true. There's two different eagles. There's two different serpents too in the Bible. Okay, sometimes there's multiple ones. You have Ophiuchus, okay, who's known as the serpent bearer, which is a man holding up a basket with a snake in it, a serpent, and the serpent's head is facing Sagittarius. Okay, so the snake is facing Sagittarius. Okay, the horse. So in the Bible, when they're talking about the snake bit the heel of the horse and they fell, okay, that's literally Ophiuchus, the snake, biting the legs of the horse, which is its connecting sign. Okay, the other one is Hydra, which is on the other side of the zodiac by Aries. Hail Hydra, that's the sea serpent. Okay, now can you pull a Leviathan with a fish hook? There were competing fish gods at the time, okay, with Jesus being the Piscean solar deity, but they were gods of fish back in the day. We'll get into that. That's Pisces. So as you can see, Job's entire response is, do you know your zodiac, and can you follow along with the wheel? Can you follow along with the signs? Okay, Psalm 104. He sends forth springs in their valleys. The wild donkeys quench their thirst. He causes the grass to grow for the cattle, and wine which makes man's heart glad, so that he may make his face glisten with oil. The high mountains are for the wild goats. He made the moon for the seasons. The sun knows the place of its setting. The young lions roar after their prey. The springs are Aquarius. The wild donkeys are Celis Borealis, which are in Cancer. The cattle is Taurus the bull. The wine and the oil are both Libra, as I've mentioned. The wild goats are Capricorn. The moon for the season and the sun knows the place of its setting is openly talking about the sun and the moon. The lions roar after their prey are Leo. Psalm 147. He gives to the beast its food, and to the young ravens which cry. He does not delight in the strength of the horse. He does not take pleasure in the legs of a man. He makes peace in your borders. He satisfies you with the finest of the wheat. He gives snow like wool. So the ravens are the constellation Corvus. The horse is Sagittarius. The man is Aquarius, and the wheat is Virgo. The wool from the sheep were Aries. Okay? Now, answers to the questions at the beginning, how Jesus was able to heal the blind. Well, in the Bible, the story literally tells you that the blind man came up to Jesus. Jesus licked his fingers and touched his eyes, and the man was able to see. However, the sun also does this too. Right now, it's morning time, so the sun is out. So I get to have sight. But when the sun goes down, right, it takes the sight away. You're blind. Okay, so the sun actually touches your eyes in the morning, and then you're given a gift of sight. How we walked on water. Well, have you ever seen the sun walk on a lake before? Walk across a lake during a sunset? It literally walks across. And if you're walking alongside the beach or something, the sun actually follows you. Okay, now Jesus is known as Christ. Christ is Christos in Greek. That's the anointed, that's the oil. Does oil not also walk on water when you pour oil onto water? See, this is a triple entendre, okay? How he turned water into wine, this is not a parlor trick, this is a process. So the reason God is considered a man, Mother Earth is considered a woman, has to do with one thing. It's God's sacred fluid, the rain that comes down. In Hebrew, the word is shemen. We get the word semen from it. It's the sacred fluid. So God's rain comes onto Mother Earth and then impregnates her, and from her belly, vegetation, life, food, fruits, everything grows. Okay? So what happens is, in Taurus, when you plant, remember, see the bull in the sky, put the plow on the bull. Okay? What happens? Well, that's April showers bring May flowers. Okay, so it rains, and it continues to rain. You plant the grapes, it continues to rain. And then you pick the grapes in Libra and crush them into wine. That's how you turn God's water into wine. Well, I had 12 disciples. We went over this. There are 12 disciples, Judas being Scorpio, the betrayer. Okay, John the Baptist would be, for example, Aquarius, the man with the water pitcher. Another one, Simon Peter. Okay, a lot of you have names like Michael or Thomas, so your names would be Mike or Tommy.
This is nicknames for people that make sense. But Simon to Peter doesn't really make sense unless you understand astrology. See, Simon was a fisherman, okay? And the sign of the fish is Pisces, okay? And what is the ruling planet of Pisces? Well, it's Jupiter or Peter. That's where you get the Peter from,
okay? So those are three. I'm not going to go into any more, but those are the three, okay? Why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, we went over that. Why he was dead for 3 days, we went over that. Why is his birthday on December 25th? We went over that. This is all astrology, people. Okay? This science only works for the people in the Northern Hemisphere, and there's a reason for that. The Egyptians, Jews, Christians, and Muslims are all based out of the Northern Hemisphere. For example, June 21st, the summer solstice, is actually the winter solstice in Australia, New Zealand, much of South Africa, and South America. Also, I've been jumping around from random book to random book. So let alone the fact that I've shown a bunch of different ones, let's take one passage from the first 6 books of the Bible to show you that it's in everything. In Genesis, he will be a wild donkey of a man. He will live in hostility towards all his brothers. The donkey is a Salus Borealis, which is located in Cancer. And the brothers are Gemini, the twins, the brothers. Cancer and Gemini are connecting signs. So there's a pattern right there. Exodus, a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay, well, we went over this. All right. Leviticus, the Lord said to Moses, bring Aaron, his 2 sons, their garments, the anointing oil, the bull for the sin offering, the 2 rams, and the basket containing bread made without yeast. The oil is Libra, the bull is Taurus, the ram is Aries. Aries and Taurus are connecting signs. The bread is Virgo, and Virgo and Aries are opposing signs at their firmament. Libra and Aries are opposing signs literally. Okay. So let's talk about the firmament real quick. Okay. When you're at the firmament, okay, let's say if you're at the firmament of Aries and Pisces, you can use it to talk about fish. You can use it to talk about rams, shepherd. That's what you can do. If you're only in a sign, you can only talk about that sign. But if you're at the firmament, because you're between both, you can use it to talk about both. So there's ways you can use it to bend the zodiac further. The way Eminem bends words when he rhymes, in order to see patterns. Numbers. Then the Lord sent venomous snakes among them. They bit the people, and many Israelites died. The Lord said to Moses, make a snake and put it up on a pole. Anyone who is bitten can look at it and live. Well, where does that sound from? Where have we heard that? That's the rod of Asclepius, the serpent on the staff. It's the Caduceus. It's Kundalini Yoga. Okay, with the chakras and the 2 snakes. Okay, it's the snake on the rod. You look at it, you live. These are just deep metaphors. Deuteronomy 32:13. He made him ride on the heights of the land and fed him with the fruit of the fields. He nourished him with the honey from the rock and with oil from the flinty crag, with curds of milk from the herd and flock, and with fattened lambs and goats, with choice rams of Bashan and the finest kernels of wheat. You drank the foaming blood of the grape. So the honey is the beehive cluster in Cancer. The oil is olive oil, Libra. Milk is the Milky Way galaxy. Center is in Sagittarius. Lambs in Aries. Goat is Capricorn. Wheat is Virgo. The blood of the grape is wine, Libra. So you have Cancer, summer solstice. Okay. You have, that's with the beehive cluster. Okay, because that's in Cancer. So you have the summer solstice in Cancer. Then you have the oil in Libra. Libra, you have the fall equinox. The Milky Way galaxy, that's Sagittarius. That's the winter solstice. Lambs, Aries. That's the spring equinox. So this shows a distinct pattern that all 4 major points here. Now, if you take these 4 major points, okay, that I just mentioned, all the solstices and the equinoxes, and you connect them on the zodiac wheel, it forms a cross. This is known as the cross of God's sun. Okay. What about Ezekiel's inaugural vision? In my 30th year, in the 4th month of the 5th day, while I was among the exiles by the Kebar River, the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. Okay. Ezekiel the wheel, when he turned 30, he saw God. Jesus starts his ministry at 30. Ezekiel sees God at 30. Genesis 32:30. The 30 references Jacob in the pineal gland. Well, how about this picture? This is Ezekiel seeing God. Well, to the right of Ezekiel is what's known as the tetramorph. Okay, the 4-headed animal. It's a lion's head, a man's head, a bull, and an eagle. Where did we know that from? Oh yeah, Revelation 4:7. Okay. They're the four fixed signs of astrology. They're fixed in their seasons. Okay. Each Aquarius man and the bull Taurus, the spring, cardinal, fixed, mutable. Okay. We went over the cardinal signs. We went over the fixed signs. We went over the mutable signs. Okay. Each sign is broken down into into 3 10-day increments called decans. So you have a sign, it's 30 days, and you have 10-day increments called decans. Okay. You also have a cardinal sign. That's why churches have deacons and cardinals. Okay. Now, the interesting thing, too, about this is that the 10-day increments called deacons, next, the church have deacons and cardinals. Next to the tetramorph is the zodiac. On the right of the tetramorph is the zodiac wheel. You can see the solstices and the equinox cross in the middle of it. Some people will say this is what an angel looks like. It's not. Last year, God is the sun, because God was the sun. Okay, and we will very much get into that. Okay. Joshua, this is the sixth book of the Bible, 6:2. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and his fighting men. March around the city once with the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark." The blowing of the ram's horn is a high holiday Jewish tradition. There are different words which can indicate different blast lengths. But what it is letting people know that the age of Aries is here. So what happens is they pull out the ram's horn in temple, and they give it words. They'll scream out like Tekiah, Shavarim, Trua. These are just key words. When you hear that, it indicates how you blow the ram's horn. Okay. The ram's horn is kind of like an audio version of Morse code. Okay. That's what it sounds like. It'll go. Dur, 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 dur. There's different ways based on what they call out. Okay. And then you have something called Tekiah Gedola, which is when the ram's horn, you just blow it until you can't blow it anymore. Okay. But the ram's horn is Aries. Okay. Which is the Jewish people. So it doesn't stop there. It's not just random passages. The Bible can be decoded this way. We're going to go through the entire book of Matthew to show how deep this runs. So what I've done is I've put the zodiac on the left and I've highlighted it in red so you can follow. Okay, this is for visual people. So Matthew 3:2, repent of your sins and turn to God, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Now, each gospel begins at one of the 4 major points of the zodiac and ends at one of them as well, too. The 2 solstices and the 2 equinox, when connected, form a cross. This is known as the cross of God's sun. The kingdom of heaven is Leo, whose ruling planet is the sun. This is the only sign that the sun rules over. So the closest of the 4 points to Leo is June 21st in Cancer. This is where the gospel starts. This is the firmament between Cancer and Leo. As you can see, I've highlighted between Cancer and Leo. It is the beginning of the kingdom. There's a saying in the Bible that says the firmament shows God's handiwork. The firmament are the dividing lines between the signs. Now, the next passage is Matthew 3:4. John's clothes were woven from coarse camel hair, and he wore a leather belt around his waist. For food, he ate locusts and wild honey. But if we take the most famous drawing of a man, Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and superimpose it onto the zodiac, we can make sense of this. Now, I've actually had people comment in the past and say, oh, the Vitruvian Man wasn't around when the Bible was written. This is bullshit. Use a stick figure. I don't care. I just use the Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man because it's a nice visual. Okay, but you can use a stick figure to represent a human. Okay, Cancer being the head is why he eats the wild honey. In Cancer, there's a star cluster called the beehive cluster. Bees produce honey. Heads in Cancer, mouths in Cancer, eats the honey. Leviticus, what's clean and unclean to eat. All flying insects that walk on all fours are to be regarded as unclean by you. There are, however, some flying insects that walk on all fours that you may eat. Those that have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these, you may eat any kind of locust, katydid, or cricket, or grasshopper. Okay? Now, I just wanted to point out something real quick. So when you see people in the news talking about eating bugs and a pound of grasshoppers is 3 times as nutrition as a pound of beef, and they're trying to get you to eat bugs, okay? As the elites are trying to do. Just know it's biblical, okay? It's Leviticus 11. A little lower down on the body is a clothes made out of camel hair. So we were in Leo. Then we went to Cancer, connecting sign. Now we're in Gemini, connecting sign. So we're forming patterns here. We're forming a chain. Okay. This is the clothes made out of camel hair, or Camelopardalis, which is a constellation which is in Gemini. Okay. Camelopardalis is a combination of two words, camelos, which means camel, and pardalis, which means leopard. Okay, the giraffe actually used to be called the camel leopard. That was the name for it. But Camelopardalis represents the camel. So right now you have the head and the upper body so far. Now we're in Taurus, so we're making another pattern. Moving a little lower on the body, you'll get his midsection, which is where he would wear the belt. Taurus represents the bull and the female is the cow, which is where you would get the leather. Regarding the belt, Orion's belt sits between Taurus and Gemini. Next would be the baptism. Now, how are we going to go from the beginning of Leo to a water sign to signify the baptism? You'd go across the zodiac. Cross signs, or opposing signs as they are known, are signs opposite location. For example, Aries and Libra are cross signs. This is very important. The sign's two most important signs are its neighboring sign and its cross sign. Here we see how it makes a leap from one firmament to the other. The man with the water pitcher in Aquarius is personified as John the Baptist with the water. It's important to note, too, that John the Baptist and Jesus are always exactly 6 months apart. When you think about the fact that Jesus is born on December 25th and rises a degree a day, then that must mean that John the Baptist is born on June 24th and decrease a degree a day. And I'm aware that some people will say Jesus was born during the Feast of the Tabernacles or in the beginning of New Year, Aries, or on 9/11. There's different cases people could be making. And you make whatever case you want, honestly, because this is the science and the story behind it. This is why all the gods are December 25th born, okay? So this is why in John 3:30, John says, he must increase, but I must decrease. Well, look at this line that I just passed, okay? If you turn this, as one goes down, one must go up, okay? So that's what it means. And it's also why St. John's Day is exactly 6 months to the day of the birthday of Jesus, okay? June 24th, okay? Look it up in a Catholic calendar. St. John's Day is June 24th. Now, the next story is the temptation of Jesus. So we're going back to the Cancer Leo firmament, July 24th. This one's simple. He's tempted for 40 days. So literally just count 40 days from July 24th. That brings you to September 2nd. That's right in the middle of Virgo. Okay, so what's the next story? The very next passage. If you are the Son of God, Matthew 4:3, tell these stones to become loaves of bread. Here we see mention of the bread, which tells you that the sun is in Virgo. The next passage, Matthew 5:17 and 22. I did not come to abolish the law, and if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. Well, the law and the judgment happens in Libra. So you went from Leo to Virgo, now to Libra. Okay, you're forming a chain again. This is another pattern in the zodiac. Okay. Matthew 7:15 and 16. Beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep. And can you pick grapes from the thorn bushes? Well, the sheep are the ram in Aries, and the grapes are in Libra. Once again, these are opposing signs. Moving along, Matthew 13. Later that same day, Jesus left the house and sat beside the lake. The story now moves from Libra to the barrier between Aquarius and Pisces, or the firmament, as he is right beside the lake, or the two water signs. See, if they said he was in the lake, then you'd have to figure out which water sign, and I use that with air quotes because of Aquarius, he'd be in. Because he's beside the lake, okay, that it's an indication it's between the two. Okay, now its cross sign is the Leo Virgo firmament. As it's across from Virgo, the wheat stalk and the grains, is it ironic that the next parables from Jesus are the wheat and the weeds, the mustard seed, and the yeast? Moving right along, next is the fishing net parable. So we now literally go back to the other side, okay, to the Aquarius Pisces border, touching Pisces, so we could talk about fish, and we could talk about the fishing net parable. I hope you guys are starting to see how deeply, deeply encoded these books are. Okay, we went through we gave you examples of the first 6 books of the Bible. I gave you examples of, we're going through Matthew now. I went through a bunch of other ones. We're just going to keep doing this. Gemini is the sign of the 2 men, technically twins. However, there's just a short mention of brothers in the next passage. He's just the carpenter's son. And we know Mary, his mother, and his brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. This ends at the firmament of Gemini Cancer. How do we know this? Well, we know we're in Gemini because they're talking about the brothers, and that's what we're talking about. But how do we know it's at the firmament? Okay. Well, if you go to the firmament and you follow it to its cross firmament or its cross sign, that's the firmament of Sagittarius Capricorn. Any idea what day that is? It's December 21st. Do you guys remember what happens December 21st? That's the day of death. Remember, the sun dies. Okay, it's the winter solstice. Okay, so how do we know this? What's the very next passage? It's the death of John the Baptist. See, all death takes place in Sagittarius, astrotheologically. As I mentioned previously, before death comes at the end of Sagittarius. The firmament of Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Gemini, Cancer are opposing signs. So let's take this sentence, which sounds like it could be in the Bible, but isn't. If I say to you, the rulers were divided between war and love, it split the land in half. You could read that as a literal translation. Okay, that's just the parable that I made up. However, the ruling planet of Aries is Mars, who's the god of war. The ruling planet of Libra is Venus, who's the goddess of love. There is your war and love. If you connect it, it literally splits the zodiac or the land in half. That's how these metaphors are encoded, people. Okay. And I just want to show you this so that you can begin to do this yourself. Okay. Matthew 14, 17, and 32. But we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Well, the bread and the fish are opposing signs in the zodiac. Also, Pisces is the 2 fish, which is why Jesus fed the masses with 2 fish. And as far as the 5 loaves of bread, the year begins in Aries. So you count 5 signs from Aries. That takes you to Virgo, the bread. Okay, that's how he feeds the masses, with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Again, the bread and the fish are opposing signs in the zodiac. This is the cross of God's Son. We were just in Virgo, and now next is Libra, which is law, wine, and oil, remember? What stories do we get now? Well, we get the story of the temple tax, the unforgiving debtor, divorce and marriage. There's all the law stuff. And the parable of the vineyard worker. There's the wine. Next is Scorpio, the betrayer. This is where Judas betrays Jesus with the kiss. So we were in Virgo, then we were in Libra, then we're in Scorpio. This is now forming a chain, okay? And then what happens in Sagittarius? It's the death, right? Next is the death, December 21st, on Sagittarius of Jesus. That's the book of Matthew. Okay, we're going to go over a couple other books. Okay? Is it starting to make sense when Jesus kept telling his disciples, why can't you understand that I'm not talking about bread? I mean, it just makes sense when you understand this. Astrology is a language. If you understand this language, the sky speaks to you. Being Rudyard. And I think now would be time for you guys to take a break. I'm going to take a break and come back and we'll continue. Okay? So you can pause it here. Okay, guys, so I'm back. I know there's no time lapse because I'm not, like, this is just raw footage. I'm not editing this. I'm not putting a soundtrack to it. This is just information. Okay? What is the point of this, you're probably asking? Well, we take for granted that we have calendars, clocks, watches, weathermen. The ancients didn't have any of that. They had sundials. In the Bible, they worked on dream interpretation for harvest. They had to know things. They needed to know that Taurus was when you put the plow on the bull and plant as above, so below. The Bible is in part an encoded farmer's almanac, and that was the knowledge of staying alive, which was the most important thing. They would look up at the stars and see all these movements and make up stories about them and pass them down to children, then them to their children. Eventually, they learned to write and wrote them down, and they evolved from Sumerian to Babylonian to Egyptian to Judaism, Old Testament, then to Christians in the New Testament. One of my favorite quotes is from John Dominic Crossan. My point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically and we're now dumb enough to take them literally. So let's continue. Jesus disappears at 12 and comes back at 30. This has been a subject of great debate, but the answer is quite simple, actually. What happens to a young Jewish boy at the age of 12? He becomes bar mitzvahed. He becomes a man. So Jesus becomes a man and moves to study. He starts his ministry at 30. But why? Well, the ancient Jewish religion has roots in Saturnalia worship from before it. That's why their day of rest is a Saturday or the Saturn day. So why 30? Saturnalia worshippers said that you were not allowed to become a teacher until Saturn came back to the point it was at when you were born. And it just so happens that Saturn takes 30 years to come back. Refer back to Ezekiel at 30. Here's Ezekiel's inaugural version. Remember, in my 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day, when I was among the exiles by the Kibar River, the heavens opened up and I saw the visual of God. Okay. Now the sun tells the hour of the day. The moon tells the day of the month. The zodiac tells the month of the year. It is a perfect calendar. In our little neck of the woods in the Milky Way galaxy, we have a perfect celestial calendar. Okay. That's the creation of God. Okay. That's a direct imprint of God. Moses goes up to get the 10 Commandments, and when he comes down, he sees them worshiping a golden calf. What's more likely? The Jews got run out of Egypt. They couldn't even let the bread rise, which is why we have matzah to this day. They rushed to the desert with just the clothes on their back, but happened to carry enough gold between all of them, found welding equipment in the desert, and built a giant statue. Or it's a metaphor. The sun is the gold, and the calf is the bull or Taurus. They're worshiping the sun and Taurus, whereas they're the Jews are the people of Aries. Okay, so they're worshiping the wrong time period. Okay, you'll constantly see in modern day stuff they're talking about sacrificing a bull, going back to bull worship. It's not bull worship anymore. We're now in the age of Aquarius, which we'll get to. Okay, in the year 1367 BC, well before Moses, Akhenaten established monotheism under a sun god in Egypt. Abraham, as the story goes, started the one true God belief, but that's just not true at all. In fact, during this time period, there have been found plenty of fertility gods and goddesses dug up in current times that the Jews have made. In fact, Moses is a character who's based on 2 Egyptians, Akhenaten, who is the basis of Moses, and Tuthmosis, which is where he gets his name, hence Moses. The Egyptians kept pristine, meticulous records about their history. Even the things that were unflattering or painted them in a bad light. There is zero evidence in the Egyptian records of the Exodus, of Moses, of the plagues, of the Red Sea parting. There is zero mention in the Bible of the pyramids and the Sphinx. You would think that both of these things would be there, but they're not. Okay, now simply and always have been described the path of the sun over the ecliptic as the sun dances its way around the 12 zodiacs. Mithra, okay, an ancient fish god, born on December 25th, the Immaculate Conception. He's the sun god. He's the Messiah. 12 disciples accepted sin, was killed and resurrected, becoming God incarnate. Cult includes communion, and baptism. Adonis, born 25th of December, Greek god of fertility, aka Babylonian Tammuz, aka Syrian savior. He was killed and buried, resurrected 3 days later. Dionysus, born on December 25th as a result of the Immaculate Conception, Greek god of winemaking, aka Bacchus, aka savior and liberator of mankind, naturally with communion. Osiris, born in late December to a virgin, the Egyptian sun and underwater god, aka judge of the dead, aka one of the Egyptian Trinity. Ruled over 12 kings, betrayed, killed, buried, risen after 3 days. Horus, born December 25th to Isis as a result of Immaculate Conception from the spirit of Osiris, god of the sun and light, one of the Egyptian Trinity, embodied the resurrection, God equals sun. December 25th, days of resurrection of the sun. Now, most of you have probably seen this already in Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist didn't go nearly as deep as I'm going, and they really should have. Okay, if they wanted to make the case a little stronger, it could have helped us all out in the long run. Okay. Chapter 125, Egyptian Book of the Dead, the declaration of the innocents before the gods of the tribunal. O swallower of shades, who came forth from Kernet, I have not slain people, thou shalt not kill. O doubly evil one, who came forth from the Buserite Nome, I have not had intercourse with a married woman, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife. O he who prospers from the common people, who came forth from Asiad, I have not cursed a god, thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. 3 of the 10 commandments are mentioned here. The rest can be found in the 42 negative. So it's not the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at. I actually have to change that. It's the 42 positive affirmations of Ma'at. Okay, that's where you find them. Now, Lazarus is Osiris, who Horus raised from the dead. The Greek name Lazarus equals Eliezer in Hebrew and means whom God helps. It is a strange coincidence, firstly, that the person whom Jesus resurrects happens to be named whom God helps. And secondly, that Eliezer, or breaking down its original components in Hebrew, El-Azer, closely resembles a combination of the Semitic word for God, El, with the Egyptian name for Osiris, Osir. So in the Bible, when they're talking about Jesus raising Lazarus, they literally are ripping this directly from the Egyptians, okay? The ancient Egyptians used to worship the sun in Taurus, okay? You can see the hieroglyphs here of the bull with the sun between its heads, right? Okay? Then they start to fade in numbers after the age of Taurus. Then the Jews come up in the age of Aries. That's why they blow the ram's horn to the sky on the holidays. Okay? Then they start to fade after the end of Aries. Then the Christians come up in Pisces. That's why they have the Jesus fish shown below. This is why Jesus is able to feed the masses with two fish. The two fish are Pisces. In the middle of these two circles, you'll have what's known as the Vesica Pisces, which is the Jesus fish. Okay, this is the fish. This is the Jesus fish that Christians have on their car. John 21. So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153. But even with so many, the net was not torn. Okay. You want to talk about the ancients knowing things? These two circles that form the Vesica Pisces, if you take the mathematical equation, that is the Vesica Pisces. Its equation is 247 over, get it, 153. See, the ancients knew this, okay? Okay, so now the Christians fade, and now we're in the age of Aquarius, and now look right on time. Back to Jerusalem.com, one world religion headquarters set to open next year. They're calling it Chrislam. There's other people who are talking about it. The World Economic Forum is getting involved. There's a lot going on with this, but basically it's time for a new religion. Okay, unless you expose this and people understand that we have been controlled by people who manipulate the zodiac for millennia, that you have to understand that this is basically what it's going to be. There's going to be a new religion, and then they're going to keep making a religion every time after Aquarius. In 2160 years, this is Capricorn the goat. So there's going to be a goat-related religion, okay? So this is what's going to happen. Now, I pulled this article here from the Synod of Jamnia. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, in case people are going, but I want references. Well, you don't have any references. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's the Synod of Jamnia. What the Synod of Jamnia is very similar to the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, only this took place in 100 AD. What the Synod of Jamnia was they fixed the canon of the Bible, okay? Basically, the book of the Bible was not put in order until 100 AD. Okay, the books were randomly placed. In fact, the book of Job that we went over before is actually the oldest book in the Bible. Okay, it predates the book of Genesis even. Okay, so what they did was they got a whole bunch of priests, rabbis, and politicians together to canonize this. Okay, now an interesting thing happened too, because this is at 100 AD. Okay, in Jamnia. And what they did was they canonized the Bible. But 30 years prior to that, a gospel came out called the Book of Mark, which is the oldest of the four gospels. And they actually deliberated during this council whether to include the Book of Mark in the Old Testament. Okay, that would have changed everything. There would have been no difference between Christians and Jews, for starters. Now, remember how I was talking about 30 before? Jesus at 30, Ezekiel at 30, Genesis 32:30. Genesis 32:30, and Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Okay, well, you have the eye of Horus on the left, and on the right, you have a sagittal cut of the human brain. Okay, right in the middle, the thing that looks like a nipple, that's the eye of Horus. Okay, that's the pineal gland. Okay, and that eyebrow ridge above it is the corpus callosum. Okay, so what does the pineal gland do? Well, it releases something called melatonin into your brain, which is when the sun goes down. It's what makes you sleepy, because we've evolved to have our waking hours with the sun and sleep when the sun sleeps. Okay, it also releases what's known as dimethyltryptamine, which is DMT. It's released twice in your life. The first time is when you're REM sleeping and dreaming. It causes you to dream. And the second time that it releases is as your body's shutting down for death. Okay, DMT floods your body. Okay, now what is this? Well, it has calcium carbonate crystals in the pineal gland. They change in pressure. It's the piezoelectric effect. Okay, so basically, there are these crystals in the pineal gland. And if you were to take them and you were to put them on a table and hit them with a hammer, colors would fly out of them. That's what the piezoelectric effect is. Okay, they're very powerful. Now, the interior of the pineal gland has retinal tissue composed of photoreceptor cells and is filled with vitreous fluid, just like the eyes. It is actually wired to the visual cortex. In certain reptiles, it has a cornea and a lens. Now, in many Buddhist traditions, 49 days is the total mourning period, with prayers conducted every 7 days across 7 weeks. The Buddhists believe that rebirth takes place within 49 days after death. Okay. The Christians also count 49 days. Okay. It's called the Pentecost. Okay. And basically, what the Pentecost is it's 49 days after Easter Sunday. And that's when you get your, that's when you would do your communion, confirmation, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And the Jews also count 49 days. It's called Omer. Lag BaOmer. It's the counting of the Omer. That's a 49 day time period. All these 49 days. Well, what is so special about 49 days? Well, we know now what the ancients knew is that the pineal gland becomes visible on the 49th day of gestation when we look at it through 3D ultrasounds and sonograms. Okay, that's the day that your soul enters the body, is on the 49th day. So hell, Satan, Lucifer, Baphomet, Revelation. Let's demystify it all. John's vision of Christ. Let me see something a sec. I turned around to see the voice that was speaking to me. And when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And among the lampstands was someone like the Son of Man, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet and with a golden sash around his chest. The hair on his head was white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like a blazing fire. His feet were like bronze, glowing in the furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. In his right hand he held 7 stars, and coming out of his mouth was a sharp double-edged sword. His face was like the sun shining in all its brilliance. Okay, we're going to do the book of Revelation now. We're going to do the whole book of Revelation. I'm going to demystify it for you. Among the lampstands was someone like the Son of Man. This references Aquarius, the sign of the man, the Son of Man, with a golden sash around his chest, so the sun in Aquarius. Hair on his head was white like wool, which comes from the sheep or ram, referencing Aries. His eyes were like a blazing fire. Now it's talking about the blazing sun in Aries. His voice was like the sound of rushing waters. This is referencing Aquarius again, story of the boy flooding the earth, Zeus. In the right hand, he held 7 stars. This is literally speaking of the Pleiades, okay? Revelation 4:7. Well, we did that already, so we don't need to do that again, okay? Revelation 5:5. Then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll on its 7 seals. To mention that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, also the Lion of Judah or Leo, the sun rules the planet Leo, is able to open the scrolls and the 7 seals. I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. Then I saw one of the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, come. The Lamb of God, the Son has opened the first seal while in Aries. Well, why does the first seal have to open in Aries? Well, the first seal has to open in Aries, because Aries is the first sign of the year. Okay, so that's why. I looked, and there before me, Revelation 6:2, was a white horse. Its rider held a bow. Well, come on, guys. Before the Lamb stood Sagittarius, the white horse, its rider with a bow and arrow. Sagittarius is where the sun dies. That's the man on the horse. December 21st. This is the first of the 4 horsemen. The horseman is literally Sagittarius. And when the sun dies, there will be 4 Sagittarius where the sun dies, 1 for each death in the gospel. So to summarize that, Sagittarius is the man with the bow and the arrow. It's the horseman. There are 4 horsemen in Revelation during the apocalypse. Okay, but what do the horsemen represent? Well, they represent Jesus dying 4 times in the gospels. Okay, Revelation 6:6. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the 4 living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine. Okay, well, the 2 pounds of wheat is Virgo, and the barley is also Virgo, and the oil is Libra, and the wine is Libra. Those are connecting signs. Virgo and Libra are right next to each other on the wheel. Revelation 6:12. I watched as he opened the 6th seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. And the stars in the sky fell to the earth as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken from a strong wind. The sun turned black like a sackcloth made of goat hair. The moon turned blood red. Figs dropped from a fig tree. The goat is Capricorn. And it's black because Saturn is the ruling planet of Capricorn, which is known as the black planet. It was also known as the black sun. We'll get into that later. The Jews wear a black cube on their forehead. The Muslims worship around the Kaaba. It's Saturn worship. The moon turned blood red because directly across from Capricorn, its cross sign is Cancer, whose ruling planet is the moon. First time things are good to eat are June or Cancer. The second time they're good to eat is basically Libra. Revelation 7:4, we did this already. Revelation 9:3. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth, and they were given powers like that of the scorpions on earth. The locusts came down on earth and were given powers like scorpions. They were given powers like Scorpio. Scorpio. Well, what is Scorpio? Well, that's the betrayer. It's a betrayal. So remember, this is interesting because remember in the Bible earlier, they were talking about locusts being food in Leviticus 11, right? So it is food, so it is good for us. However, locusts can also be a plague, a pestilence, which it is in Exodus. Okay, so it is both food to the ancients, and it is also a betrayer. Okay. The locusts, 9:7. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads, they wore something like gold, crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like women's teeth, and their teeth were like lion's teeth. They had tails with stingers like scorpions. The locusts looked like Sagittarius. They wore a crown of gold, or the sun in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the man on the horse with the bow and the arrow. Their faces resembled human faces. Their teeth were like the teeth of Leo, the lion. They had stingers like scorpions or Scorpio. We did Revelation 12. Revelation 13:2. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear and a mouth like that of a lion. There's a constellation called Camelopardalis. It can reference a camel. We went over this, by the way. Camelos and a leopard pardalis. The giraffe was called the camel leopard. So the beast resembled Camelopardalis, but had the feet of a bear. Okay. So next to it, Gemini is you have Cancer. Okay. You have Ursa Major and Ursa Minor representing the great bear and her cubs. Okay. We went over that before. Revelation 13:11. Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb. Well, we know that's Aries, but it spoke like a dragon. Well, the dragon is Draco the dragon, but let's break it down a little more. Okay. In astrology, I haven't gone over this one yet, but you can wrap the human body around the zodiac. It always starts with the head in Aries and the feet ended up in Pisces. The ruling planet of Aries is Mars, the god of war, which is why most Aries tend to be hot-headed and fierce. Okay, so that's where you get hot-headed from. And the feet being in water, that's where you get cold feet. So that's where you get hot-headed and cold feet from. Okay. Revelation 18:13. Cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine and oil, of wine and olive oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and human beings sold as slaves. Wine and olive oil is September or Libra. The flour and wheat is Virgo with the wheat stalk. Cattle and sheep are Taurus and Aries. Horses are Sagittarius. And the human beings are the sign Aquarius. Okay. Wine and oil is Libra. Flour and wheat is Virgo. Those are connecting signs. Okay. The sheep is Aries. Aries is an opposing sign of Libra. These are always making patterns, people. You have to look for them. Okay. So that's the book of Revelation. Okay. So that's how you break it down astrotheologically. So there's really nothing to fear there. But what about hell? What about the idea of hell, where many of you people think I'm going because I'm doing this? Okay. And I'm fine with that, honestly, if you want to assign that to me. How do we detect pain? There's a question for you guys. How do we detect pain? The male nervous system. Well, not just the male, but the nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, the nerve endings, the neurons. So let me ask you a question. When you shed that, when you give up your ghost, when you pass on, and you give up your ghost and you can no longer sense pain, how are you going to sense burning in hell? Okay. It's like the idea of if you saw a ghost coming up and you waved a torch in front of it. Okay. What are you going to do? Burn it? How does that work? It doesn't. Hell is actually the reverse concept. Hell is actually winter. Okay. The idea of a fiery pit where you burn for all eternity is ridiculous when you think about it logically. Hell is actually winter on Earth. Why? Well, it's cold. The vegetation and beautiful flowers and plants are dead. The trees shed their leaves and bear no fruit. It's freezing cold out. People tend to get sick more often. Dangerous animals, if they're not hibernating, are starving and scrounging for food. It's dangerous for humans. Remember Game of Thrones? Winter is coming. Everyone used to say that and be like, yay. No, it was literal. That's what they did. Winter was coming. They had to prepare. Okay. The Italian word for winter is inverno. If you flip a letter, inferno, and pervert its meaning, you get the concept of hell. This picture is Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy. Satan is in the bottom level of hell. As you can see, it's a tundra. Okay. It's not a fiery pit. It's a tundra. He's frozen up to his waist in frozen tundra because his wings are flapping so hard that it's continuously refreezing everything. Dante knew hell was winter. And the Bible even says it, people. Think about it. There will be gnashing of teeth. Well, when do you chatter your teeth? Do you do that in the cold or do you do that in the heat? Okay? There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Well, you chatter your teeth in the winter. Why Virgil was chosen by Dante to lead him through hell. The Sibylline records from Virgil's Eclogues, mystic writings, more specifically the fourth Eclogue, which predates Christ, but predicts the birth and rise of a boy who would later become divine and rule the earth. The story of the rise and fall of God's son, yet again. In the fifth Eclogue, Virgil gives praise to Caesar Augustus and Julius Caesar. Incidentally, that's where we get July and August from. Augustus was the first emperor after Julius Caesar was betrayed. Julius Caesar, which in Latin translates to July king, which in astrology, the ruling planet of July, Leo, is the sun. It's another poetic embrace of the rise and eventual slaughter of the sun. Everybody's living out their hero's journey. It's also important to note that the betrayers of both Judas and Caesar, which are Judas, Cassius, and Brutus, are the three people that are in the lowest level of hell in Dante's Inferno. Because of these almost mystical, esoteric writings, it makes sense why Dante chose Virgil to be his tour guide. That's just a little something that I wanted to share with you guys. It's kind of irrelevant to astrotheology, but kind of put that together a few years back. I wanted to share it with you. Satan and Lucifer. Let's continue. Satan does not exist. He's not a red devil with a tail and a pitchfork. In fact, the earliest paintings of him in the 900s, he was actually blue. That's where we get the Duke Blue Devils from. The Hebrew word for Satan is Hashatan, which literally translates to adversary. In proper context, two competing sports teams are Satans to one another. That's all they are. That's all he is. Lucifer, he's known as the light bringer. Genesis 1:3. And God said, let there be light. But how can there be light without the light bearer? How? Lucifer is immediately mentioned in the Bible, if not by name, but by action and purpose. Lucifer is also known as the morning star. Well, the morning star is also known as the planet Venus. And why? Well, the reasoning is if you go out and look at the sky just before the sunrise in the east, you will see a bright light directly over it. That's Venus. It announces the arrival of God's only begotten Son, the light of the world, every day. Lucifer is also known to have a pentagram. That's his symbol. Continuing with Lucifer as Venus, if you follow Earth and Venus's orbit around the sun in a year's time, they almost connect at 5 points. You connect that, you get the pentagram. This is it. Earth, Venus, orbit, sun, pentagram. There it is. Baphomet. Notice Eliphas Levi's name there at the bottom. He's the first person to invent the pentagram, pointing it down. Okay. The difference between the original pentagram being pointed down, with 2 points being pointed down, or 2 points being pointed up, okay, just symbolizes the difference between summer and winter. That's all it does. That's literally all it does. Now, what about Baphomet? Because people are scared shitless of him every time the Church of Satan runs him out. Well, the goat is Capricorn, and the man is Aquarius, the sign of the man. They're connecting signs. Also, at the firmament of Aquarius, connecting as opposing sign to Virgo as the sign of the woman. The ancients knew that the divine was both masculine and feminine, left brain masculine and right brain feminine. That's why Baphomet has breasts. There's a pair of tits. It's not a demonic entity. It's the joining of male and female. It's just like the next slide. This is the rudimentary phallic symbol, the original penis, so to speak. It is known as the spear. This is the rudimentary sign of the womb, the chalice, the feminine. This is the Star of David. It is the joining of the two. It is a hermaphrodite as well as Baphomet is. There's no difference between the Star of David and Baphomet. There's more sex magic in the Bible than you think. Now this is a faithful recreation of King Solomon's temple. Okay? Does it look a little strange to you? Let's see if we can demystify it. Okay, it's important to note that Solomon is not the name of a person. It is a combination of three words for the sun: sol, or sun in Latin, om, which is the sun, which is the light of the syllable om as advised in the Upanishads. Okay, thousands and thousands of years old. On was the city of light, or Heliopolis in Greece. Okay, it was a city of light. That's why when you go into a bedroom, literally to this day, you have to turn the lights on to become lightened or enlightened. Solomon. This was created using sex magic. Yakin and Boaz represent the testicles from this view. The porch is the base of the penis. The holy place is the shaft. The holy of the holies is the head. The ark of the hole of the penis is where the DNA information Torah is stored. The store chambers represent the female womb, and the two entrances to them represent the fallopian tubes where the eggs would come by. This is a rudimentary sex act. This is a penis and a vagina. That's what Solomon's temple is. Okay, Sol Oman, by the way, not Solomon. So what's next? How about Samson and Delilah? Okay, Samson is Shimshon. That was his name, which means little son. Whereas the root of Delilah is Lila, which means night. When you say good night to someone in Hebrew, you say Lila Tov. It means night. It literally translates to night good, but it means good night. Okay, the story of Delilah is that she cuts Samson's hair, which takes away his power, and he ends up eyes gouged out and blind. However, this is just another story of the sun and how it goes away at night and people are blind. This is the eternal battle between the sun and the night, or Set from the ancient Egyptians, Horus and Set. That's why we still have a sunset. Okay, Samson and Delilah is literally the story of the night chasing the sun away. Okay, as most of these biblical stories are. Jonah in the body of the whale. In the Hebrew, the words are dag gadol, which translates to great giant fish. He's in it for 3 days. It's the 3 days you see recurring in the Bible over and over again. The sun walking sideways like the crab for 3 days. Daniel in the lion's den. It's the story revolving around two signs in astrology. Daniel the man, Aquarius, and the lions, which are the Leo the lion. They're the opposing signs. Abraham and Sarah. Abraham's name was Abram before he was made Abraham. Abram is a combination of two words. Abba, which means father in Hebrew, and Ram, which means ram. Father Ram, father of the people of Aries, the Jews. Now, Abram actually goes back to Brahma. Sarai goes back to Sarah or Saraswati. So it's Brahma and Saraswati. Okay, remember the Hindus were also around at the time. Okay, so this is influences from the outside. Lot and Lot's wife in Sodom and Gomorrah. In the ancient times, people were paid with salt. It's where they get the word salary comes from. Salt. Why? Well, because it preserved the meat. And when you killed a cow and didn't eat it in one day, it would go bad. Salt kept it viable for longer. There was no refrigeration back then. Salt was the highest currency aside from gold and silver. So when she turns back to a pile of salt, you have to think about it like they're telling you a story about someone who, with all the hookers debauchery, going to Vegas, acting a fool, and then turning back at McCarran Airport to take one more look and just turning into a pile of coins. That's what the story is telling you. Okay. Otherwise, people are like, why salt? Well, I know the body's made up of salt, but what? No, that's why. Okay. Now, there's a church. There's a town in Israel called Megiddo, which a 3rd century church was found under another church. It's one of the oldest churches known to man. In the center of the floor is the mosaic of the two fish Pisces. Megiddo is also the root of the word Armageddon, which is where the war on earth and this rapture is supposed to begin. See, this is before the Council of Nicaea. This is what the ancient Christians, who were known then as Helionostics, or Helios, which means sun, and Gnosis, knowers, Greek. Knowers in Greek. Sun knowers, sun worshippers. They were sun worshippers, Helionostics. Okay, this was in the 200s, this church. They knew Jesus was the Piscean solar deity. So does the Pope. The zodiac surrounds the Stufetta de Bibiena, okay, the papal bath. Okay, America was not founded as a Christian nation. This is going to piss a lot of people off, but it's the truth. You can fact check me. I don't care. And the day will come when the mystical generation of Jesus, by the supreme being as his father in the womb of a virgin, will be classed with the fable with the generation of Minerva and the brain of Jupiter. Thomas Jefferson in a letter to John Adams. What influence, in fact, have Christian ecclesiastical establishments had on civil society? In many instances, they have been upholding the thrones of political tyranny. In no instance have they been sent as the guardians of the liberties of the people, as James Madison. The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe in blood for centuries. James Madison again. And my favorite one from Thomas Paine. The Christian religion is a parody on the worship of the sun, in which they put a man called Christ in the place of the sun and pay him the adoration originally paid to the sun. Okay, so I think now would be time to take another break. Okay, so just take a few minutes to yourself, pause this. I'll be back. Hey guys, okay, so welcome back. Let's jump right into it. The swastika. Swastika, if you read Wikipedia, which you never should do, but if you do, it talks about an origin of ancient times. From ancient religions and its peaceful meaning, however, tweak it a little and pervert the meaning, you get a modern day peace symbol that will never be reclaimed as a peaceful symbol, but it goes further than that. It's not Buddhist or Hindu, Babylonian or Sumerian or Sumerian. It's actually astrology. This is the oldest swastika that we found. It is 17,000 years old and it's from the Ukraine. Remember, 17,000 years was how far back the Lascaux Caves, which, by the way, it's illegal to go into now. Okay? They've shut it off. People cannot go in to see these paintings. But what is it? Well, if you take the North Star and you rotate the Big Dipper around it, you get the swastika. This is on the solstice, this is in the equinox. That's what you get. Here's what happens when you Google when Saturn was discovered. July 1610, Galileo spots Saturn's rings through a telescope but mistakes them for a triple planet. Saturn was discovered in 1610. That's nonsense, because that's just not nonsense. It's bullshit is what it is, okay? Because what about the ancient Saturnalia festivals and the basis of the Abrahamic Hebrew religion? It's a flat out lie. Just like how Julian the Apostate 1700 years ago talked about the sun being the fiery chariot that the planets dance around. Heliocentrism was actually discovered much earlier than Copernicus. Julian the Apostate knew this. He was the nephew of Constantine. He was a Helionostic. He tried to bring people back to Helionosis, and he got an arrow in his back during a battle for it by someone from his own side. What about Saturn, though? This is all it. In the top left, you have the tefillin that the Jews wear. It's a black cube on their head. They wrap around their fingers. Next to it, you have the black cube, the Kaaba. You have the mortarboard when you graduate. That's all Saturn. The Nintendo GameCube is a black cube. The Sega Saturn is literally a black cube. The black robe. This is all Saturn worship, people. So is this. Okay, the earrings and the wedding rings. Okay, because they used to tell, first of all, Saturn used to be a lot closer to us than it is now, and it used to be called the Black Sun. Okay, and it had rings, and it has rings. So people would see the rings, and they would worship Saturn. And the ancients would tell women that they had to listen to their god, who was Saturn. So they'd get their ears pierced with a ring because they had to listen to their gods. Whereas men wore wedding rings, wedding bands, because they had to wear a ring because they had to pledge their fidelity in front of their god. Okay? This is Göbekli Tepe. And this is the astronomical observatory of Göbekli Tepe, which is 13,000 years old. This is Stonehenge. This was a calendar. Okay? Did the same thing. This is the Sphinx. Okay? Let's talk about the Sphinx for a minute. Okay? What is the riddle of the Sphinx? I'll just go in order from the notes that I have here. The riddle of the Sphinx would ask a question, and if you passed, you were allowed to pass. Otherwise, it killed you. The riddle was, what has 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs at night? And the answer is man. You crawl on all 4s when you're a baby. You walk on 2 when you're an adult, and you have a cane as a 3rd leg when you're older. Okay? Now, under the Sphinx right paw is the Hall of Atlantis. Okay? They refuse to let people search under there, but it's been predicted by people from Edgar Casey to this boy Boriska, who came back, who he channeled a past life, okay, where he said that there's a main chamber entrance under that hole in the Sphinx's ear, right there under the ear. Okay, that's an entrance. Okay. Now, the idea of the Sphinx is the back of the Sphinx is smooth, which is interesting because it was under sand for so long. You would think it would just get ripped by sand over and over again, and it would be coarse. It would be rough because of the sand erosion, but it's not. It's smooth. Well, why? Well, the only way that could have happened is if water ran over it for millennia. Well, it actually did do that because 12,000 years ago, okay, 12,000 years ago was, or 13,000 years ago was the end of the last dry age, okay, where all the ice age melted and the water rushed over the Sphinx. Yes, the Sphinx is that old. Another way that you can know that the Sphinx is old, continuing with astrology, is that if you look at the way the Sphinx is facing, okay, 13,000 years ago, where the water would have been rushing over it, okay, to make it smooth, so that's one. The Sphinx was actually facing the constellation Leo because 13,000 years ago was the age of Leo. Okay, so there you go. This is the pyramids. Okay, they were built around the Gemini Taurus cusp of the ages to line up with Orion's belt, which is also in the Gemini Taurus cusp. Okay, this is the Antikythera mechanism. They couldn't figure out what it is. Well, it's a modern day, it's an astrological observatory. It's a computer, is what it is, from 2,000 years ago. So let's start to get into, what can we get into now? Let's start to get into how I promised you I'd talk to you guys about how this is used against us in society. Well, when do you kill John Kennedy? November 22nd. That's the handover date from Scorpio to Sagittarius. Remember your astrotheology, people. Scorpio being the betrayer, he was betrayed, and he dies in Sagittarius because the sun dies in Sagittarius. Why is January 1st the New Year's Day? So Neil deGrasse Tyson has gone on record saying that nothing special happens here on January 1st or December 31st. He's wrong, and I've tried to call him out on it. Something interesting happens. It's our new year in the world because at midnight on December 31st, if you look up as high as you can into the sky, you'll see the North Star at its height. It does not get any higher than that. Follow a line straight. It's not the North Star. I'm sorry. That's incorrect. I have to change this. It's actually Sirius, the dog star. Okay, so forgive me. It's Sirius, not the North Star. So you look up, you see Sirius at its height. Follow a line straight down to Earth. Follow a line straight down to the sun. It's a perfect alignment. Otherwise, we should have New Year's in Aries, March 21st, where Passover and Easter happen, or September 21st, when the Jews have their New Year's, or solstice. That's when it would make sense. Why do they always crash the stock market in Libra? I've been talking about this for a while. The Panic of 1907, October 1907. Teddy Roosevelt, Republican. Wall Street crash of 1929, October 24th, 1929. Herbert Hoover, Republican. Handover date to Scorpio. Black Monday, October 19th, 1987. Ronald Reagan, Republican. Friday the 14th mini crash, October 13th, 1989. George H.W. Bush, Republican. Stock market downturn of 2002, October 9th, 2002. George W. Bush, Republican. 777.68 point drop, September 29th. That's still Libra. 2008 crash, Barack Obama. However, this was brought on by the everyone should own a home subprime lending crisis, okay? The rest of them are manufactured, okay? You do not have natural occurrences for the biggest stock market crashes all within a 30-day period for no reason. They're also all Republicans that it was made down to, okay? There's going to be a crash in Libra that I mentioned. And I said the only way they wouldn't be a crash is if they think the Democrats can pull it out. I don't usually talk politics, but if they think that the Democrats are going to be able to hold the House and the Senate, they're not going to crash it. Okay. But you see everything happening. You see the Vatican pulling all their money by September 30th from all the banks back to their vaults. You just constantly see things. You see indications that we're going to have a crash. Okay. But the thing is these are usually done in October, or end of September or October, in Libra, when Republicans are in office. Okay. However, except for the one with Barack Obama, but that was because that was a man-made one. Okay, that was not a manufactured one. That was a natural one.
However, the largest daily point gains are all done in Aries, which is the opposing sign of Libra. Go figure. The Roman Catholic Church Catechism 2116. All forms of divination are to be rejected. Recourse to Satan or demons, conjuring up the dead, or other practices falsely supposed to unveil the future. Consulting horoscopes, astrology, palm reading, interpretation of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and recourse to mediums, all conceal a desire for power over time, history, and in the last analysis, other human beings, as well as a wish to conciliate hidden powers. They contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone. Abu Dawood, it is suggested that the Prophet Muhammad stated, whoever seeks knowledge from the stars is seeking one of the branches of witchcraft, that of which is inherently forbidden in Islam. So let me ask you a question, okay? This is important. I need to know why, with all this obvious astrology going on in the Bible, in the Quran, which we will get to too, okay? Why is all of this stuff with astrology being called evil? Okay, why would they tell you that a book that is in part completely encoded in astrology, why would they tell you to avoid astrology? They don't want you to know this stuff. Now let's talk about modern day things. The Phoenix Suns. Phoenix is the story of Christ, the sun, a flaming form of life that dies and rises from its ashes. Jesus was the son who died for 3 days and came back to life. What about the women's team? The Phoenix Mercury. Mercury is the ruling planet of Virgo, the only woman sign. So you have the Phoenix Suns and you have the Phoenix Mercury. What about the movie Face Off that some of you older people might remember? 1990s movie starring John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. What are their characters? Nick Cage's character is Castor Troy and his brother is Pollux Troy. I mean, that's literally the names of Gemini. But what about Travolta? His name is Sean Archer. Well, the Archer is the man with the bow and the arrow in Sagittarius. Okay, Gemini and Sagittarius are opposing signs on the zodiac. Harry Potter. There are a ton of characters in Harry Potter that are named after stars or constellations. We have Draco Malfoy, Pollux Black, Sirius Black, Andromeda Black, Regulus Black, Arcturus Black, Cassiopeia, Orion, Cygnus Black. Okay, Algol, also known as the Demon Star. Algol is a demon star in astrology. It's fixed in Taurus. Okay, there's a long history of evil attached to it. In Batman Begins, the evil character's name is literally Ra's al Ghul, or Al Ghul. 1990 song video for the Cranberries' Dolores O'Riordan. This is a zombie song, by the way. Dolores O'Riordan is painted gold like the sun, and her hairdressing represents the rays of the sun. But am I reaching? Tell me yes, please. What about the next scene? Here we see the golden sun on the cross, and the hunters with the bow and the arrow, where the sun is killed in Sagittarius. Okay? They're showing you this. They're showing you this astrotheology in front of you, and you guys have no clue what you're looking at. Okay? Katy Perry's Dark Horse video. Here we see the Eye of Horus, which was adopted by the Illuminati, which we'll get into. Now, what about here? Here's Michelangelo's fresco, okay, of God giving Adam life. So what do you see here? Okay, well, let's see what Michelangelo knew. Okay, if you look at where God is, you'll find that the first thing is that it very eerily, okay, his case that he's sitting in, eerily resembles an open cut of the human brain, a sagittal cut of the human brain. What you'll also find is where he sits, where he's physically sitting, okay, is in line with where the pineal gland is. And if you look at these cherubim, or these angels, they kind of look like folds of a human brain. But not only that, there's 12 of them, okay, just like the 12 disciples, okay? You'll also find that. So you'll find God giving Adam life through the pineal gland with the 12 disciples, or the folds of the brain on the pineal gland, okay? What about Da Vinci's The Last Supper? Okay, they're broken down into 4 sets of 3s. Okay, this is the zodiac. Aries is on the left. He's wearing a green robe. Why green? Well, the first 2 signs, Aquarius and Pisces, that I mentioned earlier, those are water signs. Those are water-bearing signs, I should say, because they're actually water signs, or Aquarius isn't actually a water sign.
I keep reinforcing that, guys. I'm not calling Aquarius a water sign because there's water in it. You can use that. So that's blue for the water. But what happens in Aries? Well, that's the ram that runs on land that grazes grass. Okay, that's green. That's when everything. It's the beginning of spring. That's when things start to green again. So hence he's wearing the green. Then you skip the next guy, and then you go to the white guy holding his two hands up. That's Gemini. Okay, the twins. He's holding his two hands up, letting you know they're twins, letting you know there's two. You skip the next guy, and you go to Leo, who's pointing. What is he pointing at? Well, that's the woman, so that's Virgo in order. But what is Leo pointing to? He's pointing to her Adam's apple to show she doesn't have one. Okay, then the next one, you've got Jesus with the alchemical clothing in the middle as the sun. And then what's next? You have Libra. Okay, and what is Libra? Libra's the scales. Look how he's holding his hands out like he's holding a set of scales. Okay, this is all astrology. Okay, so this is what I wanted to share with you guys. This is what's so important to know. Okay, modern day things revolving around astrology. Mermaids, a combination of the man sign Aquarius or the woman sign Virgo and the fish sign Pisces. Okay, what's next? Aquarius and Pisces are connecting signs. Virgo and Pisces are opposing signs. Bullfighting, bull riding, Aquarius the man and Taurus the bull. Jousting, 2 times Sagittarius. Lion taming, Aquarius the man and Leo the lion. Those are opposing signs. Fishing, Aquarius the man and Pisces the fish. They are connecting signs. Virgo the woman and Pisces the fish. They are opposing signs. Homosexuality in the Bible. Everyone knows about Leviticus 18:22, however, is what really is said there. The Greek word arsenokotai shows up in 2 different versions of the Bible in Greek, but was not translated to mean homosexual until 1946. In the 1800s, the German Bible said, "Man shall not lie with young boys, as he does with a woman, for it is an abomination." Leviticus 18:22, same with Leviticus 20:13, young boys. 1 Corinthians, the word arsenokotai, and it's important to mention that the Bible was written in Hebrew, but everyone at the time knew that if you were an intellect, you wrote and read in Greek. So 1 Corinthians becomes, boy molesters will not inherit the kingdom of God. If you were to grab Martin Luther's original German translation from 1534, they use the word Nabenschänder. Naben is a boy, Schänder is molester. The first time homosexual appears in German translation is in 1983. Feel free to look all this stuff up. We're going to take another little break here, but I wanted to share with you guys and let you know something. We're going to go into the Quran next, okay? We're getting there. We've only got about 76 slides left, so we're getting there. Feel free to cross-reference any of this. I would love someone to try and come out and debunk this. Make your own video. Get your own channel, make a video debunking all this stuff. Okay, so I will be right back, and then we'll start with the Quran. All right, guys. So it's not just the New and the Old Testament. It's really not just that. We're also going to go into the Quran. It's also in the Quran. We got into how the Catholic Church created Islam to use them to get Jerusalem back from the Jews, as revealed by Alberto Rivera, who was poisoned after in my second book. Here's Pope John Paul kissing the Quran. Okay, so let's go into it. Surah 1, the opening of the book. Day of Judgment 1, he is the sovereign. The Day of Judgment is December 21st in Sagittarius, where the sun is finally executed on the judgment provided during Libra, the scales, the justice, the just one. The cow, Surah 2. When they are told, "You on earth do not sow wickedness," they answer, "On the contrary, we only sow good here." Sowing takes place during Taurus, which is when you plant the seeds. What is Taurus? Well, it's the bull, it's the calf, it's the cow. That's why it's called the cow. He raised up the heavens as a covering and poured out water abundantly from heaven to grow fruit for your food. The zodiac is the heavens covering. Pouring out the water comes from Aquarius, the man with the water pitcher pouring out. They are waiting for gardens washed by rivers, and whenever they will be served fruits from there. The rivers are Pisces, the river with the fish in them, and they will be served fruits in Libra when the fruits are ready to be harvested. Now, the firmament of Pisces and Aries, okay, connects with the firmament of Virgo and Libra's Pisces. So they're technically opposing signs. Then he proceeded to create the heavens, and in them he built 7 celestial vaults. The 7 vaults are the 7 planets they knew about at the time. See, we know that there's, and I consider Pluto a planet still too. I don't care what they said, because when you get into astrology, Pluto has a big part in your personality. However, they didn't know about that at the time. We also know that there's 88 constellations in our area, including the zodiac. They only knew about 48 at the time. Okay, the 7 vaults are the 7 planets they knew at the time. They were in the heavens. You in his absence too, the Taurus for veneration. You have taken a calf for veneration. This is talking about the bull and Taurus. Hold fast to what was entrusted by you and follow obedient this law. They answered, we hear, but we do not obey. Out of their unbelief, they poured out into their hearts a perverse affection for the calf. Again, this is another bull worship. This is law, Libra, and law, judgment. They poured their hearts out for the calf. The calf is the bull. They were worshiping the bull again. However, they were in the age of Pisces. This is wrong. Those who do not know say, why has the Lord turned the word to us? Why has not the Lord turned the word to us? And why will he not show us a sign from heaven? Similar words were spoken by those who came before them. Their hearts are alike. We interpret the signs for those who are committed to the faith with all their soul. Looking for a sign in heaven. They are literally talking about God showing them a sign or interpreting it for them. They interpret the signs for those who are committed to faith, other people understanding the zodiac other than you. Verily, in the creation of the heavens and the firmament, and in the change darkness of the night light of the day, and in the ships crossing and the seas according to the needs of man, in the rain that Allah pours from heavens and the earth that has fallen from death lives on them. In the living creatures that he scattered over the earth, in motion and change of winds, that clouds between heaven and earth as they drive their servants. Truly, here are the hidden signs for those who understand. You'll constantly see that in the Quran. You'll see that in the Bible. Here are the hidden signs for those who understand. Well, the heavens are the zodiac. The living creatures are the fish, Pisces, the lamb and the ram, Aries, the bull, the cow, the calf, Taurus, the crab, Cancer, the lion, Leo, the scorpion and the belly crawling creatures, Scorpio, and the horses, Sagittarius. Truly, here are the hidden signs for those who understand. On the day of the Lord's judgment, he sent the book of truth with them so that people judge among themselves all that diverged their passions. When clear signs appeared to them, the judgment day is December 21st. The Quran was sent for people to judge, Libra, remember the judging, amongst themselves with the clear signs appeared to them. But if you are in danger, pray on foot or do not dismount from your horse. When the danger has passed you, you call the Lord with praise, how he taught you and how until then you did not know. Dismounting the horse is Sagittarius, the man on the horse. Okay? Why danger? Well, what happens in Sagittarius? You have the death. That's the danger. And those who on the path of the Lord spent from their good to that single grain are like those who gave birth to 7 years. The grain is Virgo, the virgin, the sign of the woman who metaphorically gave birth to the 7 planets. It's just another metaphor for the virgin birth and one for the 7 planets in heaven. And whoever wants to own a beautiful garden of date palms and vines, which is washed by abundant streams, where for his pleasure all kinds of fruit, while old age befalls him and the children are weak, so that a fiery whirlwind falls on the garden and swallows it all to ashes. So the Lord explains his signs to you so that you can understand. The vines are vineyards in Libra. The streams are the streams of water signs of Pisces and Aquarius. God explains these 12 signs to you so that you can understand, so that you can decode this. He is the one who sent down the book to you. Some ayats in it bear an open meaning, revealing by himself, as it were, the mother of the book. Others are hidden in their interpretation. But those whose heart is on the earth and sins wander, desiring confusion, follow what meets their pleasure, seeking out the hidden meaning, which is known only to Allah and is revealed only to those who possess deep knowledge. We believe in the holy book and say where all ayats are revealed from God. and only he whose mind is bright can embrace its message. This is talking about how there are deeper interpretations within the Quran, and those who seek out the hidden meanings, those with deep knowledge, minds bright, can embrace the message, I believe, is the work I'm doing and I'm talking about. And how beautiful all people see the love of earthly passions. Here are women and sons, there are mountains of silver and gold, and marked horses, and herds of cattle, and a plowed field. The women are Virgo, the sign of the woman. The sons are the sign of man in Aquarius. The horses are Sagittarius, and cattle is Taurus. A plowed field happens in Taurus as well. Okay, so this one thing has 4 signs, or 5 signs. But among them, there are those who are not like these. Among the people of the scripture are those who, with patient steadfastness for the truth, stand and surrendering with all their soul to Allah, spends long hours in the night reading his signs. Reading his signs. The signs are the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the keywords in each sign that you need to know to be able to decode this, like every other book. Verily is the creation of earth and sky, and in the change of night to day, here are the hidden signs for those who have intelligence. They're basically teasing you at this point. You know, they're saying, do you understand what I'm trying to put down? Are you grasping this? The hidden signs of the zodiac. The Lord heard them and calls in reply, I will never give to the abyss not a single human deed, whether it is a man or a virgin. Interesting. A man or a virgin, not a man or a woman. You know, the man sign is Aquarius and the virgin is Virgo. Man or virgin. Until the day of their resurrection at judgment, and whenever they light the fire of the war, the Lord will put it out. The judgment happens in Libra on September 21st. The fire of war comes from the god of war, Mars, who's the ruling planet of Aries. Those are opposing signs. So there's the pattern we've been talking about. And among them, there are those who only pretendingly listen to you. We put a cover on their hearts so that they would not understand it. And we covered their ears with deafness. And even if they see all the signs, they will not believe them. See all the signs of heaven. He's the one who placed the stars for your needs to show you the way. When darkness falls on land or sea, thus we clarify our signs for those in whom knowledge lives. This is so obviously openly talking about the signs in the sky, using the North Star to guide you. If you're at sea, this is so obvious. He is the one who brings down water to you from the sky. Okay. And with it, we give plants of all kinds to grow. And with it, we grow shoots of cereals. From them, we grew grains, sitting in an ear of a dense side by side. From the date palm, its ovaries, bunches of fruits hanging low, gardens of vines, olives, pomegranates, which in many ways are so similar yet so different from each other. When fruits appear on them, rejoice in how they are poured and ripened. Truly in this are hidden signs for those who believe in God. Well, the grains are planted in Taurus. Then April showers bring May flowers, water from the sky. The grains grow. Reap in Virgo, gardens of vines and olives. Remember what I told you about Libra? It's law, grapes, and olives. So the grapes and the olives are pressed in Libra. These are the hidden signs you need to know. So we interpret our signs to them in different ways so that they could not say to you, from others learn this. And so that the truth we clearly explain for those who have knowledge. So follow what your Lord has revealed to you by suggestion. Take and pair 8 heads of cattle, 2 from sheep, 2 from goats. Such an odd combination. Out of all the animals they could have ever mentioned that were going on, you have the cattle, that's an ox, that's Taurus. The sheep are Aries, connecting signs, by the way, Taurus and Aries. And the goat is Capricorn. Incidentally, in Aries, you have the spring equinox. And so there's that. And the Libra will be faithful on that. And Libra will be faithful on that day. And those whose cup will be heavy in the delight of paradise dwell. And those whose cup is lightweight, they themselves will doom themselves to destruction because they were lawless in relation to our sign. Is Libra not the law, the judgment? Libra is Libra, which is the judgment. The cup being heavy or light refers to the sins one has to account for. Our signs reference the signs of the zodiac. Say all the blessings of a neighbor's life for those who believed in God with all their souls and only for them on the day of resurrection at the judgment. Thus, we explain our signs for those. They keep saying that. We explain our signs. Do you understand the signs? For those with hidden knowledge, all this stuff. It's all talking about the same stuff, guys. The sign are the signs in the sky. They tell you when to plant, when to harvest, when winter is coming. They tell you what season it is. The resurrection comes December 25th, the day the sun is resurrected from the dead, from the judgment, which takes place on September 21st, which is the fall equinox. This is the explanation for the signs of our times. Before those who consider our signs to be false and glorify over them, the gates of heaven will not open, and they will not enter paradise until the camel squeezes through the eye of the needle. Okay, so this is a passage that they also have in the Bible too. So the signs of the zodiac, they tell you everything you need to know. A camel can't pass through the eye of a needle, but the light from Camelopardalis can. Okay, these are deeply, deeply encoded metaphors that you need to be able to utilize the words that I've given you in order to figure this out. And Musa is Moses, by the way, threw down his rod, and in front of everyone, he turned into a serpent. He stretched out his hand, and she flashed whiteness before the eyes of all the beholding. Then the nobles of the people of the Pharaoh said, "This is indeed a skilled sorcerer, and he wants to expel you from your land. What is your advice?" They answered, "Delay him and his brother." And the summoners went through the cities. So Musa is Moses. The serpent is the 13th sign in sidereal astrology, Ophiuchus, which is between Libra and Scorpio. I don't think that's right. I think it's between Scorpio and Sagittarius, actually. Delay him and his brothers are the brothers in Gemini. They're opposing signs. He is the one who made the sun life-giving brilliance, established the moon, and the light pours in phases so that you know the number of the years. The creation of the sun and the moon tells the time. I went over that. He is the one who created the night so that you can rest, and the day to let you see. Indeed, here are the hidden signs for those in whom have the desire to hear. Same as in the Bible. Jesus says, for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. And he says other things too, like, why can't you understand I'm not talking about bread? Of course you're not. Talking about the signs in heavens. Say, look around, everything in heaven and on earth, and neither the signs nor those who carry the message can be useful to people who are stubbornly unfaithful. The signs in the sky are not useful to people who do not recognize them. And two young men entered the dungeon with him, and one of them said, in a dream I saw that I was squeezing wine from grapes. Another said, I saw that I was carrying bread on my head, and the birds pecked at it. Tell us the meaning of these dreams. After all, we see that you are one of those who act according to the knowledge and kindness. Well, the wine is Libra, and the bread comes from Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. These are connecting signs. You think? I mean, this was written this way on purpose, people. Okay, this was written to show patterns. I mean, and it's the same stories that keep coming up over and over again. And the king said, truly in a dream, I saw seven well-fed cows, which seven thin cows eat, and also seven green ears, and seven others reaped. The cows are the female bull, which is Taurus, and the corn is Virgo. Corn is typically harvested in September. Verily, here are the hidden signs for those who seek to recognize the meaning of our signs. It's the hidden signs of the zodiac. He created cattle for you. It contains both warmth and every other benefit. And from it you will be flush for food. He created horses for you, mules and donkeys for journeys and for magnificent ceremonies. And he creates for you much of that which you hitherto unknown. The cattle is Taurus, the horse is Sagittarius, the donkey is the Salus Borealis, the donkey which is located in Cancer. He used it to grow cereals, olives, palms, vines, and many other fruits for your food. Indeed, there is a sign here for those who give themselves up to meditation. He subdued you night and day, and the sun, the moon, and by his will, he put the star in the service of you. Indeed, there is a sign here for those who have intelligence. The olives and vines are Libra, that's the sign. Then talks about the sun and the moon, and the star in service is Polaris, the North Star. These are the signs for those who have intelligence. From palm fruits and vines, you will find good food for yourself in an intoxicating drink. Here, verily, is the sign for those who will understand. Well, this is the season of Libra. Musa said to his servant, I will not retreat until I reach the place of the confluence of the two seas. At least I had to go years. When they reached the confluence of the two seas, they completely forgot about their fish, which directed its way straight to the sea in a wonderful way. So this is talking about the confluence of two seas. The two water, in quotation signs, of Aquarius and Pisces. So he's talking about the border between them. When they got there, They forgot about their fish. So we know they're not talking about Pisces, the fish. We know that they're talking about Aquarius. This is what I mean. You can discern based on what they're talking about, whether they're talking about the water in Aquarius or the water in Pisces. Surah 19, Mariam. And now when Yahya was born, may there be peace to him on the day he was born, on the day he dies, and on the day he will rise. Excuse me. To life again. How can I have a baby? He said. She said, when no man has touched me and I was not dissolute. She came to her people carrying the baby son in her arms. They said, "Oh, Mariam, you have done an unheard of deed." So Yahya is Yeshua, Jesus. Mariam is his mother, Mary. The day he was born is December 25th, which is when the sun is born again. And the day he dies is December 21st, the winter solstice. And the day he rises to life again is December 25th again. Also, Daud and his son Suleiman, so this is David and Solomon, when they gave judgment on the field which was harmed by the stray sheep belonging to the family from the community we ourselves represented at the trial. The judgment is Libra, the scales of justice, and the sheep is Aries. Those are opposing signs. And the one that kept the virgin flesh, as we breathed into her from our spirit and made her and her son a sign for all the worlds. Virgo is virgin, is the sign of the woman. The sun is Aquarius, the son of the boy man. These are the signs of the world. When he came to the drinking place of Midian, he found a crowd of people whose their flocks watered. And apart from them, he saw two girls who drive aside their cattle. He asked, "What's your business?" They answered him, "We cannot water our cattle until all the shepherds leave, and our father is a deep old man." The two girls are Virgo, the sign of the woman. The cattle is Taurus. The shepherds are Aries, the ram. Taurus and Aries are connecting signs. Father is Aquarius, the sign of the man. Here is a figurative parable of paradise, which was promised to the faithful. In it are rivers of water that will never be spoiled, and rivers of milk that do not change their taste, and rivers of wine to delight those who drink, and rivers of honey that clear. So the rivers of water are Aquarius, Pisces. The rivers of milk are the Milky Way galaxy, whose centers in Sagittarius. The river of wine is Libra, when you press the grapes for the wine. The river of honey is in Cancer, where the beehive cluster is. This is just, it doesn't take too much to break these down. The codex is not that big. There's not so much to break down. I mean, there's a lot to break down, but there's not many. I'm not giving you a ton of tools to use, and you can apply it for everything. Indeed, the judgment of retribution will come. As a sign of heaven, the owner of the ways. The sign of heaven, or the judgment, is Libra, the scales, the justice, the judgment, the just one. Surah 55, the merciful. He assigned the paths of motions to the sun and the moon, and determined their phases. The stars in the sky and the trees on earth bow their heads before him. He set up the high vault of heaven, and by his will he sets the scales for measuring good and evil. This is talking about the sun and the moon once more in their phases. The vault of heaven, the scales, is the sign of Libra once again. In the sign of the sky, the owner of the zodiac signs, as a sign of the promised day, last judgment. Finally, towards the end, we have open talk about the zodiac and the creator of it all. See, it's right there in the open. The judgment is Libra again. I swear by the fig tree, the mountains of Jerusalem, the olive tree Damascus. Is Allah not the best of judges? The olives are in Libra. The judgment is in Libra. This passage is talking about Libra. Okay, so I wanted to read the Quran. That's the Quran, guys. So we've done the book of Revelation, the book of Matthew, and the Quran so far. I'm going to give you a list of other ones that I've done, but that's going to pretty much be it. We're in the home stretch right now, so don't worry. I just wanted to share with you one more thing, the astrotheology about Islam. You're talking about the 72 virgins, right? That's what all these terrorists, and that's what they all do it for, right? The 72 virgins. The 72 virgins are astrology too, guys. There's a star called 70 Virginis, which borders Virgo. That's 70 virgins right there. There's one virgin in Virgo, so that's your 71st. Plus the virgin that you marry on earth and have your family with, 72. These are the 72 virgins. It's all astrology. And we're going to take a quick break, okay? Because I want to get into some, we've already done
the book of Revelation. We demystified Satan, Lucifer, Baphomet, hell, all that stuff. Now, what I want to do is before we get into the final aspect of this, I want to show you Illuminati hand symbols. Okay, because a lot of you people see this and you freak out. So I'm going to break that down too. Hey guys, so we're in the home stretch. I'm going to put the camera on because I'm going to show you these hand symbols, okay? Right. So let's see here. Hey guys, I'm not hiding my face. I'm not hiding my name. You know, you can attribute all this to me. That's fine. Okay. This symbol. Okay. Now, do you remember when the news tried to say this was for white power? Some shit like that. It's absolute nonsense. It's garbage. Okay. They also tried to say this is a white supremacy symbol. They also try to say that when you do things like this is Illuminati. It's not. If you do this and you turn it like this, okay, this is what you hold in the lotus position when you pray. That's where it comes from. The reason you connect these two fingers is because it has to do with the nerve that's coming through. Okay, so there's that. Covering one eye like this in CDs and articles and music videos and all sorts of stuff like that. This goes back to the eye of Horus, which we know what it is. It's the pineal gland. Okay. This that Jay-Z does, sometimes he does it over one eye, sometimes it's like this. Okay. This is supposed to be evil, Rockefeller, whatever. Or it's supposed to be Rockefeller or whatever. This is not this. I'm sure you've seen this before. Live long and prosper from Spock. When you do this, it suddenly becomes an ancient Kohanim priest blessing on the congregation. They would do this to the congregation. This is known as the benediction. Okay? This is a priestly blessing. This is just inverted and perverted. This is where it comes from. Okay? This, where they say you see everybody doing this, the devil horns. This is not the devil horns. Okay? This is the Apana Mudra. Okay, it's for purification. It purifies the individual physically from toxins and sheds negative energies that you might be holding. See the old Italian ladies go like this in some Loki? That's what it is. That's all it is. Now this is a peace sign. This is the ancient peace sign. This, when you see this is a V for victory. It's Winston Churchill's war sign. The fingers are separate. This is the ancient peace sign. So I've mentioned this. When Baphomet or Jesus or Buddha, or you see any of them with this, okay, it's peaceful. Now, what about the upside down cross? You see that all the time. Satanists use it and such, right? Whatever. The upside down cross is actually an honoring thing. Okay? It's an honor. You know why? Because St. Peter was crucified that way. And why was St. Peter crucified that way? Well, the story tells you that he said he was not fit to be crucified in the same way as Jesus. So it's a symbol of love. Okay? And then we went to Lucifer, the morning star, Venus. We went to Satan. We went into the devil. We went into the book of Revelation. We hit the Quran. We did all this stuff. Okay? We did the Illuminati hand symbols. What are we going to do now? Well, now I'm going to teach you the ultimate secret. What Buddha figured out when he was enlightened under the fig tree. What all these ancients have figured out. Okay? I'm going to teach you the secret, the meaning, and the purpose of life. Okay? So let me stop this. Let me go back here. Let's go back to this, guys. Okay? This is outside the Masonic Temple on Wilshire Boulevard in California. It shows the Pharaoh, who we've literally touched on, Akhenaten, and he's literally handing over the ultimate truth to a Greek philosopher.
It's the same truth that Buddha came to. I'm going to share it with you now. And for some people, it will hit like a ton of bricks and make you cry. Some people will reject it and call me blasphemous, the Antichrist, evil, the devil, all that stuff. It is the ultimate realization how you can become fully realized as a human being. And I'm going to teach it to you because it should not be kept from the public. However, this is the kind of thing that has to hit you in your soul and changes everything. Okay? If you don't feel that right away, you're not ready for it. But I will share it with you. What is God? I'm going to read you a passage from my first book that I wrote when I was 28, Into the Rabbit Hole Beneath the Veil. Scientists have determined through completion of the Genome Project that humans are roughly 99.7% identical DNA-wise. 2 penguins are more genetically different than you and I are. Whoever finds this, I want you to try this experiment. Write your name down. Write your 2 parents' names down above yours. Now you have 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and you go on. Let's go back 35 generations. It roughly takes you back to the year 840 AD. You will have 137 billion people. The number of ancestors list reminds me of the story of the servant summoned by the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was pleased with how the servant was doing and wanted to reward him. Serving you is all I desire, sir, the servant insisted. No, I insist that you ask for something, anything you desire, the Pharaoh said back. This went back and forth until the Pharaoh got fed up and threatened punishment. After thinking long and hard, the servant, seeing a chessboard in front of him, declared, on that day, 1, I want 1 piece of rice. On the second, I want 2. Each day you will double the previous days until the chessboard is complete. I will place a grain on each square representing each day completed. The first day, the Pharaoh sent his finest servant in a parade with a golden pouch to deliver the grain. The amount grew exponentially, and halfway through the board, there was no more grain in the land. The Pharaoh summoned the servant back in. Your Highness, all I ever wanted to do was serve you, replied the servant. The servant, although now the wealthiest man in the land, had retained his hubris. It was there that the Pharaoh learned not to question humility or assume that material gifts or tokens of appreciation were all that mattered. As for the servant, he continued to work for the Pharaoh. However, he had taken all the rice and continued to feed all the poor and the homeless until the day of his death. So the point of both of these stories is that it's simple math. In fact, it's how cells divide in your body and mass produce exponentially. The reason I stopped at this particular time frame is because roughly how many people it's been calculated that have ever lived on planet Earth? 140 billion people. That is. Even if we take the Bible literally, we still need to get to October 23rd, 4004 BC. We're in a bit of a pickle here. There needs to be a way to bridge the gap, and this is where the pedigree collapse comes in. The concept states that there is no other explanation other than a whole lot of incest. Sometimes, like in the case of the Kentucky Blue people, there are no branches in the family tree. Sometimes, like in banking or royal families, it's to preserve money or special genetics that they think they have. Based on our DNA, geneticists say that the farthest point one person can be on the planet from another is 50th cousins. Think about that. Okay? So an Aborigine in Australia and like Brad Pitt are 50th cousins at furthest. If your mom was from country X and your dad from country X as well, there's a 20% chance they share a common ancestor within 10 generations back. So what does it all mean? Well, in a nutshell, it means far enough back we are all related and all one and should start to act like it. So let's explore different cognitive viewpoints. How about from a creationist then? Well, we all came from Adam and Eve, technically Eve from Adam's rib, and even more technically, Adam was made from mud and dirt from the world God created. How about from an evolutionist then? Okay, let's start with the Big Bang. Let alone the fact that all the material came from an infinitesimally small, dense singularity, and no one seems to want to explain where the singularity came from. We'll let that slide. We were all one at one point. How about the idea of source energy then? If our souls are like crumbs of a cookie, the cookie source being source, God, whatever you want to call it, then we're all connected multidimensionally, and upon death, it will be a vibrational change of frequency back to it. Let's try one last one. Aliens placing us here. You would still have to account for the first humans and how we all came about. You don't just magically have a species poof, we're here, or do you? If so, who created the first test group of people? Secondly, what about the first spirit consciousness of DNA that evolved this level of high thinking? There is a big difference between what I am writing and a monkey who's fed up with people taking pictures of him and throwing shit at him. Well, still though, the point is that at some point things had to come back to a singularity in the sense of one source of point. Humans are so quick to think about the end of the world, things ending, but what they can't do is think about the beginning or
if there was something before beginning. This was my first book 10 years ago. It was so close to the ultimate truth. Okay. I wrote this when I was 28 years old, the first book, which I'll get into I'll tell you guys about my books too. Okay. First, we need to define God. Well, the sun tells the hour of the day, the moon tells the day of the month, the zodiac tells the month of the year. I explained this is a perfect calendar. Okay. And it explains 360 days. In fact, the last 5 days, it goes back to a story of Thoth. Okay. The Hermes Trismegistus of Thoth from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. He gambled with the moon for 1/72 of her light, and he won. Okay, which means he won 5 days. So that's why we have 365 days instead of 12 months of 30 days. Aside from the fact that DNA is a computer blueprint for life and that we have a perfect calendar in the heavens, in the middle of nowhere in the Milky Way galaxy, there's a perfect calendar for us to figure out. These are fingerprints of God. So now we've defined God as at least existing. But where is God? Well, it must be beyond space and time, beyond the 11 dimensions of string theory. Ask any religious person to define God, and they will tell you that God is infinite. So we have to go on the basis that God exists, okay, based on circumstantial evidence, okay, and that God is infinite. Ask any religious person, they'll tell you that. So, okay, God is infinite. Well, then how can something exist outside of infinity? It can't. See, the biggest lie we've been taught is that we are separate from God, that we should fear it, that we are separate from it. We are actually a part of it. Many of you have children and they are literally half your DNA, so they are a part of you, but you experience them subjectively outside your body. So is with God and us. A piece of God comes down in what we call consciousness into a body and we feel separate from it. We are all God experiencing itself subjectively. If you are infinite and everything, nothing can exist outside of you, not space, time. So what do you do if you're everything? Well, the only thing you can do is experience yourself. But how do you do that? You need to experience yourself, not knowing that you're experiencing yourself, not knowing that you already know everything. So you trick yourself into thinking you're not God and experience yourself subjectively. We are a species with amnesia living in a simulation. Einstein said about God that he believes in the God of Spinoza. Baruch Spinoza was a thinker who said that God doesn't want you huddled in churches and temples in the cold, praying as loud as you can with others, praying the loudest. Jesus says that those who give for publicity or pray the loudest, they have their reward. That's just a cute way of saying that the adulation and the attention they get, that's their reward. It's not actually the act of what they're doing. So if you pray, pray by yourself. Spinoza's God wants you to go to the mountains and the lake and enjoy what I am created for you and worship that way. The biggest lie that we've ever been collectively taught is that we need to fear and worship. When we are a baby, we are in our mother's womb. The mother, being the supreme being, is aware of the baby. However, the baby is not aware of the mother from its vantage point, as is us with God. We are each a piece of God, unaware of the whole because we're in the middle of it. This is Alan Watts. Jesus Christ knew he was God. So wake up and find out eventually who you really are. In our culture, of course, they'll say you're crazy and you're blasphemous, and they'll either put you in jail or in the nut house, which is pretty much the same thing. However, if you wake up in India and tell your friends and relations, my goodness, I've just discovered that I'm God, they'll just laugh and say, oh, congratulations, at last you found out. Nargis Allegria. To become absolute, you have to accept that you are God, that there is only God. You have to admit that other gods are God, that others are gods too. But if your love does not stretch that far, then you are blinded by your shadow. Don't complain that liberation did not happen yet. Why should freedom reveal itself to someone who refuses to embody love? When you're ready to perceive God in everything, you have opened a gate that opens the possibility of being eaten raw by the absolute. Yes, everything you hate is God, because there is only God. Okay? Anything you think should not be happening is God, because there is only God. Realize that only being God, and it will prevail, first in your experience, then in your collective. Isaiah 45:7, they try and tell you this in the Bible. I, the Lord, form the light and create the darkness. I make the peace and create the evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Okay? Good does not exist without evil. Okay? The duality is what gives them each their characteristics. Okay? Everything in existence is part of God. Everything. The good, the bad, all of it. Religious people can't admit they are God. Only Jesus and God are God. But how can something exist outside the infinite by their own thoughts? Now, string theory used to be the most cutting edge quantum physics, and it talks of 11 dimensions to make it work. Now, the most cutting edge quantum physics states that the universe is conscious. Well, welcome to the fucking party. Okay, incidentally, Hermes talks about string theory 6,000 years ago. The third Hermetic principle is the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything vibrates. You are God experiencing itself through amnesia. The book of Thomas saying 77, split a piece of wood and I am there. Raise up a stone and you will find me. God is everything, the wood, the stone. And now this starts to make sense. Quran 532. That is why we decreed for the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul without it being guilty of manslaughter or corruption on the earth, it is though as he has killed all mankind. And whoever saves a life as though he has saved all mankind. We are all one. We are all God. And this now makes sense too. We are all sharing the same exact consciousness. That is God. Okay? Matthew 25:40. Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. We are all one. This makes sense now. We are all God, therefore we are all infinite and we are eternal. And the problem with the religions that I've been breaking down is that they try and tell you that you are separate from God and that you should fear judgment and punishment. Okay? That's not what we do here. Okay? When you realize you are eternal and you are God, just as the enlightened have realized in the past, you get filled with love. You no longer fear death and you're driven to love one another. Not because of fear or punishment like the religious, but the biggest mystery of life is sitting in front of you in plain sight. The religious texts allude to it, but they never just come out and say it. I'm coming out and saying it. You also have to understand is that when you come to this realization, people, that feeling you get, that some of you will get when you hear this, is the exact same feeling that religious people get when they're saved, which is why it is so hard for them to break away from their dogma. Okay? They are ruled by fear. Okay? They're God-fearing and they are ruled by it. And that's just there's no reason for it. Okay? Nothing exists outside the infinite. Okay? Once they are ruled by fear, this is why it's so hard for them to let go of their holy books as literal text, which brings me to my next point. The Bible is made up of what is known as the 9 sciences. Okay? The scriptures are metaphysical, astrological. We just went over the astrology. Okay? Anatomical. We could talk about the anatomical. You could talk about the 12 disciples, the 12 cranial nerves, the place Jesus is crucified in Golgotha. That's known as the place of the skull, where the 2 hemispheres meet, the pineal gland. You can talk about alchemical. I talked about the white and the red robe. Okay, it's spiritual. It's esoteric. It's mythology too. Okay, the Bible's also etymology. Example, Mount Sinai. Okay, Sinai is a combination of 2 words: Sin, which is Sumerian for moon god, and Ai, which is Sumerian for mountain. It was the mountain of the moon god. Why? Because when Moses went up there, the ancients would see the moon come from behind it, and they thought that's where the moon came from. Okay, we went to Bethlehem. Okay. The Bible is also numerology. Number 3, 12, 33. 33 being the spine, the bones in the spine. Okay, where the Christ rises and it explodes in your pineal gland, causing your resurrection. Okay, the 12 disciples, the 12 zodiac signs. Okay, the 3 days that the sun walks sideways. Okay, I've been studying astrotheology from the best in the world before I started doing it myself. I've been at it for 10 years and I'm nowhere near understanding the entire thing. Each one of these sciences goes that deep. It's literally more information than you can learn in an entire lifetime. So if you read the Bible literally, you're not going to get much wisdom out of that. Okay? That's not how it's supposed to be. It is encoded 9 different ways, at least. Okay? What you need to know about the Bible is it is not literal, it is not historical, it is not reality, and it is not original. We are all God interacting with itself. We are eternal and infinite and powerful. We use DMT and hallucinogenics to see other realms and connect with God. We meditate to lose the voice in our head so that we can be one with the all. When you first realize this, you will go through the 5 stages of grief with your religion and your prophets. It hits everyone differently. We are in the age of Aquarius. The time to be ruled by religion is over and the elites know this. That's why they're ramping everything up and are scared shitless. We are the first people to see a change of a century, a millennia, and a zodiac sign. That never happened and will never happen again. This is the golden age of enlightenment. This is the secret of life. And the meaning of life is to find your gift, because we all have a gift. And the purpose of life is to give that away. Okay? Now, just so that you guys know, these are the books that I've decoded so far. Okay, the book of Matthew, we did that. Revelation, we did that. Enoch, Jubilees, so all the Gnostic texts. Okay. The Book of Mormon, believe it or not, I have a video on that, the same thing. Okay. Now, book's not Bible related. See, if it was just we also did the Quran too, didn't we? Yes, we did. So if you're talking about this, it's not just these books. It's also the Enuma Elish, that's Babylonian, the Epic of Gilgamesh, that's Sumerian, the Code of Hammurabi, where laws come from. Okay. The Egyptian Book of the Dead. Okay. This astrotheology, this codex that I gave you, okay, the words that I gave you, the codex that fit with each sign, that breaks everything down. Now, I have a book series out that goes into this in much greater detail. Topics I discuss in the book series are gematria, etymology, numerology, astronomy, astrology, astrotheology, out-of-body experiences, the Akashic records, symbology, remote viewing, religious secrets, capstones of the pyramids, mystery school channelers, near-death experiences, DMT monitoring, lucid dreaming, acoustic levitation, physics and quantum physics, psychotherapy, psychology, spiritual guides, and shared dreaming, crystal technology, conspiracies that not many people know about, corruption, secret societies. You want to read the real version of a Da Vinci Code? That's what my book series is about. This is them right there, okay? I got 7 out so far, okay? It's called the Into the Rabbit Hole series, okay? They're in order, okay? And I have videos about stuff that I've predicted in these books that have come true. I also have a kids astrology book with my astrologer Priscilla. It's called A is for Aries, okay? It's for 6 to 11-year-olds, okay? So let's just finish up with this. My point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories, and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically, and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. Okay? So now we can take a look at this. So you have Polaris, the North Star. You have the lambs, that's Aries. The camels, Camelopardalis. The donkeys, Acellus Borealis, which is in Cancer. The bull is Taurus. Jesus, the baby, has a sun behind his head. Mary and Joseph's clothes are alchemical. So now we can break this down now that we understand this. Okay? So I've left links and people in the description of this video. I've never asked you guys for anything, but if you could send this video and your thoughts to each and every one of them, this will be able to blow up and reach critical mass. So my name is Micah T. Dank, and I write under the name Micah T. Dank. I don't hide my name. I don't hide my face. This is my work. This is my legacy. And I thank you all for being a part of this. This is an all-inclusive video that I've made. I know it's going to be rather long. I gave you guys breaks, and I know that you're going to probably want to watch it like a million different times. This is the best case against it, guys. We're going to evolve in the age of Aquarius. I can promise you that. So, thank you.